Chapter 531. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. No matter, the emperor said without care. Sienna is still young. He wouldn't argue with a child. Otherwise, he would have been angered to death by his own little fatty many times over. Not to mention, the emperor's gaze fell on Huangfu Xian's legs. His body wasn't well, so it was inevitable for him to be angry. Lian take Sienna out to bask in the sun, Princess Ning, and said to Lian. Yes, Lian respectfully responded. She cautiously went behind Huangfu Xian and pushed his wheelchair out. Your Majesty, Princess Ning explained, Sienna has been spoiled by me. Please forgive him. Do you still call me Your Majesty? The emperor stared at her. Princess Ning smiled bitterly and changed her words, Imperial brother. Eunuch Qin walked over and reported with a smile, Empress Dowager, Princess Ning, and in the young master's chambers have been prepared. Imperial mother. Princess Ning looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang in astonishment. Empress Dowager Zhuang said, The Baixia Hall, before you were married, has been reserved for you. You and Xian can live there for the time being. Princess Ning Anne's eyes moved. She lowered her eyes and asked, Can I still live in the palace? There was no reason for a married princess to live in the palace. In fact, ordinary princesses didn't have their own chambers. They lived with their imperial mother. Princess Ning was an exception. Empress Dowager Zhuang and the emperor doted on her too much and built a Baixia Hall just for her. She had been married to the frontier fortress for so many years, but Baixia Hall had never been used for other purposes. The emperor hurriedly said, Since it's imperial mother's wish, you can live there. The emperor also hoped that Princess Ning could live in the palace. This way, it would be easier for him to take care of the mother and son. The emperor had many things to say to Ning. He guessed that his imperial mother did too. However, when the three of them were together, some things were difficult to say. Jean will accompany you to Baixia Hall, the emperor said. Princess Ning nodded and bowed to Empress Dowager Zhuang. Ken will come pay respects to imperial mother later. Empress Dowager Zhuang nodded and watched as the emperor and Princess Ning left Rinzhou Palace. Eunuch Qin came over with a cup of tea. Seeing Empress Dowager Zhuang's sad face, he couldn't help but sigh and persuade, The princess has a hard life. If she had listened to your words, how could it be like this? But fortunately, she came back safe and sound. From now on, no one will make the princess suffer. Empress Dowager Zhuang closed her eyes and turned her head. A tear slid down her cheek. The emperor and Princess Ning walked side by side towards Iridescent Clouds Hall. Lian pushed Huangfu Xian and followed behind at a distance. Princess Ning turned to look at the indifferent Huangfu Xian and sighed helplessly. The emperor sensed her gaze and asked softly, What happened to Xian's leg? Were you injured in the war? Princess Ning shook her head with difficulty and said, It was when I was young. When Sienna was 5 years old, the frontier fortress encountered a great snowstorm. The emperor nodded thoughtfully. I have an impression of this. The court also sent disaster relief funds to the frontier fortress. Jing, concubine Jing, had personally made clothes for Princess Ning to keep out the cold and asked the imperial envoy to bring them to the frontier fortress. The emperor didn't want to mention this name now. He hated her to the core, but she was Ning An's birth mother. It was very awkward. Princess Ning smiled faintly. Yes, mother gave me clothes to keep out the cold. What does this have to do with Xian's leg? At that time, his father and I went to help the disaster victims. He slipped out of the princess manor alone. The child was naughty and couldn't stop for a moment. The guards couldn't keep an eye on him and successfully lost him. We found him after a day and a night. He fell down from the mountain and lay in the cold snow. His legs were frozen to death. To save his life, the doctor had to amputate his legs. Princess Ning tried to appear calm as she said this, but her breathing and clenched fingers still revealed her emotions. The emperor's heart clenched. He couldn't say whether he cared more about Huang Fuxian or Princess Ning'an, whose son had suffered such a fate. He took Princess Ning'an's hand like he did when he was young. "I didn't know something like this happened to you, and Siener, why didn't you say it in the letter?" Princess Ning'an said in a low voice. "This kind of thing is hard to say." Every time it was mentioned, it felt like a knife was cutting into her heart. Every time she was comforted, it felt like a knife was cutting into her heart again. When a person was truly in extreme pain, it wasn't to seek comfort everywhere, but to cut oneself off from the outside world. The emperor naturally understood this, so he felt even more sorry for Princess Ning'an. He secretly swore that he would never let Princess Ning'an leave his side again, nor would he let her and Sienna suffer any grievances. Sienna, Princess Ning'an wanted to say something but stopped. The emperor was her brother. Even though they hadn't seen each other for so many years, he could still guess what she was most worried about. He stopped and looked at her solemnly. "No matter who Sienna's father is, he is still your child and my nephew. I will do my best to protect him." Not many people objected to Princess Ning'an's return to the capital, but that might not be the case for Huang Fuxian. After all, the blood of the previous dynasty flowed through his veins. Those radical civil and military officials would probably use Huang Fuxian's bloodline as an excuse. Princess Ning'an said in shame, "I'll have to trouble you, royal brother." "It's no trouble," the emperor said. If Huang Fuxian had a healthy body, perhaps it would indeed be a little troublesome. However, what was there to be afraid of with his damaged body? Those officials had nowhere to vent their anger, so they wanted to make fun of a child. Once the truth was revealed, the controversy would lessen. The emperor said, "Ning'an, I still want to talk to you about concubine Jing's matter." Princess Ning'an smiled faintly. "Royal brother, there's no need to say more. Ning'an understands. Mother, she is a spy from the previous dynasty. From the moment she worked for the previous dynasty's imperial family, her fate was sealed." "Do you resent her?" the emperor asked. Princess Ning'an said, "There's no point in talking about this now." The emperor said, "She sent the Dragon Shadow Guard to the frontier fortress to find you. Did she want to kidnap you?" Princess Ning'an shook her head. "They wanted to take me away. They came with a shadow guard. That shadow guard said that something had happened in the capital and that the frontier fortress might not be safe, so he wanted me to leave with them first. But they couldn't beat Huang Fujiang's men of sacrifice, and were all injured in the end. That shadow guard even died." The emperor hadn't expected Du Zheng. No, Du was a fake surname. His real name was Huang Fujiang. He hadn't expected him to have such a powerful fighter. Fortunately, Princess Ning'an was fine. Otherwise, the emperor would be filled with regret. Princess Ning'an had lost count of how many times she had expressed her guilt today. "I'm sorry. I caused the Dragon Shadow Guard to be injured. They will recover," the emperor said. The Dragon Shadow Guard had followed the army back to the capital and was recuperating in a special place. It would be a lie to say that he didn't feel pained, but this had nothing to do with Ning'an. It was all concubine Jing's idea. Princess Ning'an continued forward. "I think Mother must have guessed that she couldn't hide it for much longer. Prince Yi and Huang Fujiang's methods were outrageous. She was worried that I would be in danger if the matter was exposed, so she sent someone to save me. She used me my whole life and only realized that she wanted to do something for me now." At this point, Princess Ning'an laughed self-deprecatingly. "Why?" The emperor's expression was complicated, but he didn't say anything. The group soon arrived at Iridescent Clouds Hall. The people of the Imperial Household Department were used to bowing to the powerful and trampling on the weak. Princess Ning'an might be a widow, but she was doted on by the Emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang. Everything they bought for her was the most luxurious, exquisite, and priceless. To say nothing of other things, even the bed curtains were made of shark silk. Even Empress Xiao and Princess Xinyang didn't receive such treatment. The servants serving her were also carefully selected by the Imperial Household Department. There was a manager eunuch, a manager nanny, for senior court ladies, 10 junior court ladies, and 10 junior court eunuchs. This was no longer a standard that a princess could enjoy. Imperial brother. A complicated look flashed through Princess Ning An's eyes. She sighed. I don't need such expensive things, and I don't need so many people. The emperor's face darkened. You are my most beloved sister. If I say you need it, then you need it. Princess Ning An wanted to say something, but stopped. The emperor held her shoulder and stared fixedly at her weather-beaten face. He said with heartache and self-blame, I didn't protect you well back then and caused you to suffer for so many years. I will make it up to you in the future. You don't have to worry about anything. Just leave everything to me. No one will dare to criticize you. If there is, I will cut off their heads. Princess Ning An wanted to say something, but before she could refuse, a child's chattering came from outside Iridescent Cloud's hall. A trace of confusion appeared on Princess Ning An's face. The emperor smiled and said, It's little Qi and his little classmate. Little Jinkong had just entered the palace. He was a child, so he didn't know who had come to the palace. He had come purely for the rent increase. That day he had asked his brother-in-law for a rent increase, but his brother-in-law had said that his request was unreasonable. So he wanted to ask his great-aunt how to reasonably increase the rent. Unfortunately, his great-aunt's mood seemed to be a little down. He was an understanding child, so he decided to temporarily put aside the matter of the rent increase. He tried his best to act cute for a long time, but in the end, he was thrown out by his great-aunt with an expressionless face. It was too noisy. Then he went to find Qin Chiu. Qin Chiu had recently raised a puppy. The two chased the puppy everywhere. The puppy probably smelled the emperor's scent and ran to Iridescent Cloud's hall. When Qin Chiu and little Jing Kong arrived outside Iridescent Cloud's hall, they happened to see Huangfu Xian sunbathing at the entrance. They had never seen a wheelchair before, so they were quite curious. Little Jing Kong walked over, looked at Huangfu Xian's wheelchair, and said, Wow, what kind of chair is this? And it has wheels. Compared to the strange chair, Qin Chiu's attention was more on the person. He asked in confusion, Who are you? How come I've never seen you before? The palace was Qin Chiu's home. He might not know all the maids and eunuchs, but he should know this person who obviously had some background. Huangfu Xian sneered at the little kid and the little bean in front of him. Who are you? Qin Chiu introduced himself seriously. I'm Qin Chiu, and he's my classmate, Jing Kong. Huangfu Xian looked Qin Chiu up and down, then looked at little Jing Kong with a sneer. He said sarcastically, You're already so old, but you still go to school with such a young child. Are the princes of the Zhao kingdom so stupid? Qin Chiu's hair stood on end. Who are you calling stupid? I'm not stupid. I'm in the prodigy class of the Imperial College. Huangfu Xian sneered. You stuffed it in, right? You. Qin Chiu's face turned red. Little Jing Kong was completely attracted by the big wheels of the wheelchair, so he didn't pay attention to their conversation. He squatted down, tilted his head, and carefully looked at the big wheels in front of him. Qin Chiu put his hands on his hips and stomped his feet. This was little Jing Kong's habit. After spending so much time with little Jing Kong, he unconsciously picked up some of the little Jing Kong style. He said angrily, How dare you talk to me like that? Do you know who I am? I'm the 7th prince of the Zhao kingdom. If you continue to be so rude, I'll get someone to beat you up. Huangfu Xian wasn't scared by his words. Instead, he coldly reached out his hand and pushed Qin Chiu to the ground. Unfortunately, little Jing Kong was squatting on the ground, looking at the wheels. When Qin Chiu fell, he was knocked down as well. Ouch! Little Jing Kong cried out in pain. His little foot was squashed by Qin Chiu's, but when the emperor and Princess Ning An walked over, they saw the two children fall to the ground. Eunuch Wei also came out. He quickly walked forward and pulled up Qin Chiu, who was on top, and little Jing Kong, who was on the bottom. Are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere? He asked worriedly. Little Jing Kong's right foot hurt a little. Qin Chiu had a lot of meat, so he didn't hurt, but he was very angry. He turned around and was about to pounce on Huang Fu Xian. Stop! The emperor shouted. Eunuch Wei immediately held Qin Chuyu. Qin Chuyu immediately complained and pointed at Huang Fu Xian. Father, he pushed me. The emperor looked at Huang Fu Xian in the wheelchair. Huang Fu Xian slowly leaned against the back of the wheelchair and raised his eyebrows. I didn't push you. You fell down yourself. Qin Chuyu widened his eyes. Nonsense. I wouldn't fall down myself. It was you who pushed me. Jing Kong, you saw it, didn't you? Huh. Little Jing Kong was confused when he was suddenly called out. He was too focused on studying the big wheel and didn't see anything. At this moment, Lian came back with a bouquet of flowers. She didn't know what happened and handed the peony flowers to him. Young master, here are the flowers you wanted. These flowers were planted by Princess Xinyang in the Imperial Garden, and each flower was worth 100 gold coins. Lian casually plucked out 5 flowers. Huang Fu Xian took them and said in disdain, there are so few of them. Didn't I tell you to pick all of them? Lian wiped the sweat from her forehead and said, the others haven't grown yet. Only these 5 flowers look the best. I don't like them. After saying this, Huang Fu Xian threw away the 5 peonies that Princess Xinyang had painstakingly cultivated without a second thought. The emperor could already imagine Princess Xinyang's expression when she found out that her flowers were gone. Xian, Princess Ning An's face darkened. The emperor's throat was dry. He weakly took in a cold breath, coughed, and said calmly, it's okay. It's just a few flowers. Xian likes peonies. I'll ask the greenhouse to send a few more to Iridescent Clouds Hall. As he spoke, he turned to Qin Chuyu and said in a low voice, why aren't you here to greet your aunt and cousin? Qin Chuyu asked, who's my aunt? Who's my cousin? Princess Ning walked towards him and patted his head. I'm your Aunt Ning and he's your cousin. As she spoke, she pointed at Huang Fu Xian behind her. Qin Chuyu pushed her hand away. He's not my cousin. The emperor's eyes darkened. How dare you? Qin Chuyu angrily pointed at Huang Fu Xian. He pushed me. Huang Fu Xian said calmly, I didn't push you. Qin Chuyu was furious. You pushed me. You pushed me. You pushed me. Princess Ning looked at Huang Fu Xian and asked seriously, did you push His Highness or not? Huang Fu Xian looked straight into Princess Ning An's eyes and said, no, I didn't. You did. Qin Chuyu was about to explode. Enough. The emperor stopped Qin Chuyu and said to Eunuch Wei, send His Highness back to Qinquan Palace and Jing Kong back to Rinshou Palace. Eunuch Wei bit the bullet and said, yes. Let's go, His Highness. Jing Kong. Eunuch Wei gently led the 2 of them forward. The moment he turned around, Qin Chuyu wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes. I'm not lying. He pushed me. Father, why don't you believe me? Little Jing Kong held Qin Chuyu's chubby hand comfortingly and looked back at the young man in the wheelchair. At this moment, the young man also looked over. Little Jing Kong saw the young man give him a malicious and provocative smile. F***ck off. The young man sneered and said silently, the latest chapter of this book isn't finished yet. Please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. You can find all the novels that you can't find online. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_89642826/10905280. HTML Genius memorized the website address www.zhbqg.com Biku Pavilion mobile version website zhbqg.com. Chapter 532. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more interesting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found on the internet are all available here. Iridescent Cloud's palace was closer to Rinshou Palace. So Eunuch Wei sent little Jing Kong back to Rinshou Palace first before taking the aggrieved Qin Chuyu to Cunning Palace. As soon as Qin Chuyu saw Empress Xiao, he couldn't help but cry as a little man. Seeing his tears fall down, Empress Xiao didn't understand. She hugged her son and wiped his tears with a handkerchief while asking, "What's wrong?" Qin Chuyu cried until he was out of breath. Empress Xiao looked at Eunuch Wei. Eunuch Wei had no choice but to tell the whole story. The seventh prince said that young Master Xian pushed him, but young Master Xian said that he didn't push him. That child had just lost his father and was disabled. He even lost both his legs. His Majesty couldn't bear to scold him, so he let this servant bring the seventh prince back. Eunuch Wei said this skillfully, making people feel that it wasn't that His Majesty didn't believe Qin Chuyu, but that the child was too pitiful and was a guest, so His Majesty didn't hold him responsible. Empress Xiao sighed. "Okay, stop crying. He pushed me. I didn't lie." Qin Chuyu cried miserably. Okay. He pushed you. Mother believes you." Empress Xiao comforted her son. After Eunuch Wei left, Qin Chuyu cried for a while and fell asleep. Empress Xiao asked Eunuch Su to go to Iridescent Cloud's palace to give some gifts to Princess Ning and check on the child. "The bottom part of his trousers is empty," Eunuch Su reported. Empress Xiao looked at her son, who was sleeping soundly, touched his forehead, and slowly sighed. "I know, you may withdraw." Empress Xiao had a good relationship with Princess Ning in the early years, even better than with Princess Xinyang. Princess Ning was innocent and lively. She was a girl whose smile warmed people's hearts. However, after not seeing each other for so many years, they had grown distant. Empress Xiao might still be Empress Xiao, but Princess Ning was no longer the naive and childish princess. Now Ning was just a poor woman who was betrayed by her husband, and her only son was a cripple. If Empress Xiao argued with them, it would be beneath her dignity, not to mention that it would make His Majesty and Empress Dowager unhappy. Empress Xiao frowned and said, "Keep a close eye on the seventh prince in the future. Don't go to the Iridescent Clouds Hall anymore. Take the dog with you, and don't let the seventh prince see it again." Eunuch Su replied, "Yes." After little Jing Kong returned to Rinshou Palace, he said goodbye to his grand-aunt and planned to go back. Because he was a year older, he firmly believed that he could come and go as freely as his bad brother-in-law. So he came here in Lu Quan's carriage. On the way back, he rode in Lu Quan's carriage. He was an independent little man now. "Great aunt, goodbye." He waved his little hand. "Hold on." Empress Dowager Zhuang grabbed the little fellow and placed him on a chair beside her. She asked, "What happened to your foot?" Little Jing Kong, "Even this has been discovered. I clearly walked very well." "It's nothing. It just hurts a little." Little Jing Kong waved his little hand and said. Empress Dowager Zhuang took off his shoes, revealing a swollen little instep. Empress Dowager Zhuang frowned and said, "What happened?" "It's all swollen." Little Jing Kong was naughty. It was common for him to bump and bruise his body, but it was rare for him to get swollen. Little Jing Kong seriously and honestly told her what happened just now. In the end, he added his own opinion. That little brother doesn't seem to like to play with others. Eunuch Qin looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang worriedly. Empress Dowager Zhuang put down little Jing Kong's trousers and put on his shoes for him. She said, "It's okay if you don't like it. You can play by yourself in the future." "But why does his chair have wheels?" Little Jing Kong was still thinking about the big wheels. Empress Dowager Zhuang felt sad when she mentioned these things. Eunuch Qin hurriedly said, "Jing Kong, I'll take you to sit on the swing outside." Okay." Little Jing Kong jumped on the ground and hopped away with one foot. A few clever maids stayed in the yard to play with him. Eunuch Qin came back and looked at Empress Dowager Zhuang, who seemed to have aged a few years overnight. He comforted her with heartache. "Empress Dowager, don't take it to heart. That child's body is like this. It's inevitable that he has a strange temperament. Plus, he just lost his father. It's inevitable that he'll be emotional. Besides, with his broken body, he'll feel sad when he sees a normal man. Eunuch Qin could empathize with Empress Dowager Zhuang on this point. He was a eunuch, and his body was crippled. At this age, he had naturally thought through what he should have thought through and accepted what he should have accepted. However, in his early years, when he saw normal men, he would feel jealous, hateful, unwilling, and inferior. Huang Fuxian was the same. They both knew whether Qin Shiyu was lying or not. Empress Dowager Zhuang closed her eyes and said, "I'm tired. Remember to ask someone to send Jing Kong back." Yes. Eunuch Qin agreed. Blue Clouds Hall. The emperor returned to Pure Flowers Palace first. Princess Ning and then Huang Fuxian sat in the spacious bedchamber. Princess Ning and had dismissed all the palace servants, leaving only Lien at her side. Huang Fuxian sat in his wheelchair and absent-mindedly played with a fresh flower in a vase. Princess Ning sat down across from him and stared at him. "Xian, why did you do this?" "I like it." Huang Fuxian looked at the flower in his hand. Lien looked at her princess in fear. Princess Ning took a deep breath and suppressed her anger. She said seriously, "Huang Fuxian, this isn't the border fortress. This is the imperial palace. Even the smallest thing can make you lose your head." Huang Fuxian pinched a petal. "Oh, is that so? Who dares to go past His Majesty and the Empress Dowager to chop off my head?" Princess Ning stared at him for a long time. "Huang Fuxian, no one owes you anything. His Majesty and the Empress Dowager won't always favor you. It's best if you put away your bad temper. Don't be ungrateful for your good fortune." Huang Fuxian looked at Princess Ning mockingly. "And if I don't? Will you send me back to the border fortress? Or will you just treat me like a remnant of the previous dynasty and deal with me? I almost forgot. You are the princess of Zhao country. You can place righteousness above family and abandon your husband. What is a crippled son in your eyes? Why don't you get rid of this burden as soon as possible so that you can find a husband to marry?" Slap. Princess Ning slapped him across the face. Huang Fuxian's head turned to the side from the slap. Lien paled in fright. She rushed over to hug Huang Fuxian and said to Princess Ning, "Princess, don't be like this." Scram. Huang Fuxian didn't appreciate her kindness and pushed Lien away. Lien staggered a few steps and bumped into the table behind her. Her back was bruised. Huang Fuxian wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his slender fingers. He looked at the drop of blood and his lips curled. A trace of mockery flashed through his eyes. "That was a good hit, my mother." Gu Jiao went to the medical hall today. When the second master saw her, his tears almost fell. He didn't care about the many doctors and patients in the hall. He held Gu Jiao's hand tightly and looked her up and down for a while. "Little Gu, are you really okay?" "I'm fine," Gu Jiao said. "You're lying. You didn't tell me that you had such a serious illness. You were also kidnapped by the prince consort." The people from the medical hall also went to the border fortress, so they could bring back some news about Gu Jiao. For example, after Gu Jiao came back from Lingguan City, she isolated herself for 7 days. Dr. Song knew that she had contracted an epidemic. Dr. Song would not hide it from the second master. But Dr. Song didn't know that she was kidnapped by the prince consort. She didn't say anything. Gu Changqing also didn't say anything. She didn't say anything because she was too lazy to say anything. Gu Changqing didn't say anything because he was considering her reputation. Gu Changqing only reported everything truthfully in a letter to the emperor. Other than her and Gu Changqing, only Princess Ning and her servant, and Dr. Tong knew about this matter. Gu Jiao's gaze crossed the medicine table and fell on a certain person who was filling medicine for a patient. Probably feeling Gu Jiao's gaze, Dr. Tong turned around and smiled brightly at Gu Jiao. He waved his hand and said, "Dr. Gu." Dr. Tong was one of the people who saved Princess Ningen. This time, he came to the capital because the emperor wanted to reward him in person. But he didn't live in the Imperial Courier Station. He came to the medical hall to do odd jobs for free. Dr. Gu. After he finished filling the medicine for the patient, he walked over with a smile. You left the army that day. I was worried about you. Gu Jiao faintly replied, It's been hard on you. She was referring to the fact that he didn't receive a monthly salary for doing odd jobs. Dr. Tong hurriedly waved his hand. It's not hard at all. He glanced behind Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao knew what he was looking at and said, It's in the basket. Dr. Tong's eyes lit up. Gu Jiao said again, I won't let you touch it. Dr. Tong was speechless. There weren't many patients who came to see the doctor during the new year, and there weren't any difficult diseases that Gu Jiao needed to deal with. Gu Jiao went to Lu Yixing's house in the afternoon. She didn't go on New Year's Eve. She went on the first day of the new year, but Lu Yixing wasn't there. Anu and the old mama were also not there. Gu Jiao knocked on the door of the Lu family again. Surprisingly, there was still no response. No one? Did they go out again, or has no one been here these days? Gu Jiao quietly listened to the noise inside. Lu Yixing had a special identity, and too many people in the capital wanted to bully him. Gu Jiao wasn't sure if something had happened to him. She grabbed the trunk with her left hand and pulled it over the wall. The yard was covered with snow, and there were no strange footprints. The gate of the courtyard was bolted from the inside and was not locked from the outside. However, if one went through the central room to the back door, one would find that the back door was locked from the outside. So they really went out. There was a little dust in the room, but there were no traces of fighting. Gu Jiao basically ruled out the possibility that Lu Yixing was kidnapped. Gu Jiao thought for a while, took out a small notebook, and left a note for him, asking him to find her in the clinic when he came back. She had something for him. After Gu Jiao left Lu Yixing's house, she went to the Qinghuan Chess Club. She wasn't going to play chess, but wanted to see the old beggar nearby. She left in a hurry and didn't say goodbye to the old beggar. She didn't know how he was doing recently. She looked around the street where the old beggar used to be, but didn't meet the old beggar. Suddenly, a scholar came out from the Qinghuan Chess Club across the street. She stopped him and said, Brother, have you seen the old beggar playing chess across the street? Gu Jiao was used to dressing as a man in the frontier fortress, so she also dressed as a man today. After being with Gu Chengfeng for 3 months, she had learned some skills in falsetto. It wasn't very pleasant to hear, but her juvenile voice could still fool the layman. The scholar was quite knowledgeable and wasn't scared by the young man's face. He said kindly, Oh, you mean that person? He left. Left? Gu Jiao was slightly stunned. Yes, I haven't seen him for more than 2 months. If he didn't leave, what did he mean? It's also possible. The scholar covered his mouth. He probably realized that he shouldn't say anything inauspicious during the new year, so he skipped the last few words and said directly, he's old. And it's snowing so heavily in the capital this year. You know. Yes. Gu Jiao understood. The weather was cold and the ground was frozen. An old beggar who had no one to rely on might freeze to death on a cold night on the street. This was the scholar's guess. It wasn't Gu Jiao's guess. The old beggar could earn money, so he wouldn't starve or freeze to death. Of course, it didn't rule out that he was killed or accidentally. He shouldn't be so unlucky, right? Gu Jiao murmured. What did you say? The scholar asked. Gu Jiao said, Nothing. Thank you. Goodbye. Hey, the scholar didn't stop Gu Jiao. He scratched his head in confusion. It's so strange that someone would come to inquire about the whereabouts of a beggar during the new year. Anyway, that beggar seems to know how to play chess. He even won against Maoshan Hermit of the Qinghuan Chess Club. TSK, what does this have to do with me? The scholar shook his head, wrapped his cotton-padded jacket tightly, and walked through the snow-covered street. Coincidences in the world were so bizarre. They were either there or not, as if they had made an appointment. Gu Jiao walked unhurriedly on the quiet street. The capital was the most prosperous place in the whole Zhao country. However, the streets were still deserted during the new year. Gu Jiao only saw one or two carriages pass by after a long time. Gu Jiao didn't care and kept walking forward. However, when she passed by an alley, there was a lot of noise coming from the other side of the alley. Gu Jiao looked over and saw that it was coming from the direction of a mortal music house. Gu Jiao wasn't very familiar with a mortal music house. She had only been there a few times to investigate some things. Old concubine Jing was most likely the owner of a mortal music house. After the old concubine died, Gu Jiao didn't keep an eye on a mortal music house. But what could have happened to a mortal music house? Gu Jiao paused for a moment, but still walked toward Immortal Music House. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/89642_8964286/109029629614. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhpqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 533. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. The outside of Immortal Music House was crowded with onlookers. To be able to attract so many people during the new year, it could be seen that something big had happened inside. Nearby, there were several carriages from the government. Looking at the insignia, there were some from the capital governor and some from the Ministry of Justice. To be able to alarm the two big government offices, Gu Jiao's evaluation of this matter was one level higher. Hey, this old man, what happened to the Immortal Music residents? A young man who came to join in the fun around the same time as Gu Jiao politely asked the middle-aged man beside him. The middle-aged man stretched his neck to look inside Immortal Music House. Seeing nothing, he sighed disappointedly and turned to the young man. I heard that someone died. Someone died? The young man was shocked. During the new year, this word was too unlucky. The young man took a long time to utter a complete sentence. Who died? The young man asked. After saying the first time, the second time didn't seem so difficult. Gu Jiao originally didn't pay much attention to their conversation until she heard the middle-aged man say, Immortal Music House's top courtesan. If she remembered correctly, Immortal Music House's top courtesan seemed to be Mo Qianxue. Gu Jiao and Mo Qianxue had only met a few times. The first time, Mo Qianxue told her where the emperor's assassin was. The second time, Mo Qianxue told her that the owner of Immortal Music House was a woman. After that, when she went to Immortal Music House, she was told that Mo Qianxue had been ordered to leave. After that, she was no longer in the capital. Did something really happen to Mo Qianxue? She had only left for 3 months, but the capital had a feeling that things had changed. Gu Jiao went to the side door of Immortal Music House and easily jumped in. The walls of Immortal Music House were higher than ordinary walls. If it was 3 months ago, she would have to use a bit of effort. Now it was as easy as blowing off dust. It seemed that the 3 months of fighting at the border weren't in vain. Especially the battle with Sirius. It stimulated a lot of her potential. She was sure that she had recovered more than 30% of her strength. Gu Jiao walked through a corridor hung with red lanterns and followed the sound to the back door of the lobby. The lobby was crowded with people from Immortal Music House, as well as the officials who came to handle the case. Gu Jiao looked at the parasol tree beside her and climbed up without any change in her expression. She found a spot with an excellent view and sat down. She saw a corpse covered with a white cloth on the ground, and a few servant girls were kneeling beside the corpse, sobbing uncontrollably. Gu Jiao had seen one of the servant girls crying the most before by Mo Qianxue's side. Gu Jiao couldn't remember her name, but she was sure that she was Mo Qianxue's confidant. Miss, she lay on the corpse and wailed. The capital governor frowned and said, all right, don't cry. Hurry up and cooperate with us to investigate the case and find the murderer of your young miss as soon as possible, so that your young miss can rest in peace in the underworld. Hearing this, the maidservant lifted the undulating body on top of the corpse, waved her hand and pointed towards the girls of Immortal Music House. It's her who killed my young miss. From Gu Jiao's angle, she couldn't see who the maidservant was pointing at, but as soon as she opened her mouth, Gu Jiao heard it. You can eat anything you want. Don't talk nonsense. When did you see me kill Sister Qianxue? It was Hua Xiao, a girl who also had some status in Immortal Music House, but could never be compared with Mo Qianxue. Gu Jiao remembered that once Hua Xiao took her to her room and gave her an aphrodisiac that actually had no effect on her. As a result, Mo Qianxue arrived and slapped Hua Xiao in public. The maidservant complained in a tearful voice, It's you. I heard it with my own ears. Hua Xiao didn't even lift her eyelids. What did you hear? The maidservant angrily glared at her. I heard you say that you wanted to kill my young miss. Not only did I hear it, Hong Yu and the others also heard it. If you don't believe me, let the official ask them. The capital governor and assistant minister, Li of the Ministry of Justice, looked at the other girls, pointed at by the maidservant. The girls all pinched their handkerchiefs and looked like they couldn't refute. It seemed that they heard it. The two officials couldn't help but exchange a look. Hua Xiao snorted and said, I was just saying. Can't I do that? The maidservant turned to look at the capital governor and assistant minister Li of the Ministry of Justice. Darren, it's really her. The capital governor asked, Did you see her kill your young miss with your own eyes? This. No. The maidservant lowered her head. Hua Xiao laughed wantonly. The capital governor frowned. An official shouldn't handle a case with emotions, but this Hua Xiao's attitude was really arrogant. He looked at Hua Xiao. When did you say that, and why did you say that? Hua Xiao looked at the handkerchief in her hand and said lightly, About 2 days ago, Mo Qianxue has always liked to bully people. Relying on her identity as the top girl of Immortal Music House, she was domineering in front of the sisters. The maidservant shouted, Nonsense. My young miss didn't. Hua Xiao looked at her with a sneer. Darren is asking me a question, not you. The maidservant was so angry that her face and neck turned red. Hua Xiao continued, Mo Qianxue took a fancy to my rouge and asked me to give it to her. I didn't give it to her, so she snatched it. I warned her that the owner of the house was no longer here. Did she still think that someone would support her? As a result, she hurt me. If you don't believe me, you can take a look. Hua Xiao said as she lifted up her left sleeve, revealing her white wrist and arm. There were a few bruises on it. The officials didn't look at indecent things. The examination of injuries should be done by a special coroner and doctor. But the coroner hadn't arrived yet. Assistant Minister Li of the Ministry of Justice and the capital governor pretended to be calm and quickly withdrew their gaze. The capital governor cleared his throat and waved his hand. Okay. Hua Xiao slowly put down her sleeves. She beat me like this. So I said 2 ruthless words, saying that sooner or later, I will kill her one day. But Darren, before I had time to do it, she died. The maidservant couldn't listen anymore. You are still quibbling. You have always been at odds with my young miss. Not only did you kill my young miss, but you also smeared her reputation. My young miss doesn't like your rouge. Hua Xiao said fearlessly, If you don't believe me, you can go and find it. Is there a box of Yulon Pavilion Rouge in your young miss's makeup box? I went to Yulon Pavilion to buy it myself. The owner of Yulon Pavilion knows which color I bought. You can take the rouge and ask if it's the one I bought. Don't say that your young miss bought it herself. You know better than me whether she bought it or not. The owner of Yulon Pavilion also knows it. The maidservant couldn't refute at once. She stammered, but except for you, who would hate my family enough to destroy her body? Hua Xiao shook the handkerchief in her hand and said sarcastically, "Then how do I know who your young miss has offended outside?" The maidservant was so angry that she almost rushed up and tore her apart. The governor looked at Hua Xiao again. "You just said that the owner of Immortal U residence is gone. What's going on?" Hua Xiao's expression paused for a moment. "Our lodge master is dead." Gu Jiao came out of Immortal Music residence. It was already dark, and there were sporadic light shui floating in the sky. The bustle of Immortal Music residence didn't spread all over the streets of the capital. Gu Jiao walked in the echoing alley, thinking about Mo Qianxua's matter. She always felt that something was wrong. "Oh!" A suppressed cry of pain came from a dark corner. Gu Jiao's steps paused. As an assassin, her intuition told her that the other party didn't pose any threat to her. She wasn't a nosy person. If there was no threat, she was going to leave. However, she didn't take 2 steps before she came back with a frown. She walked into the dark corner and saw a thin figure curled up in the snow. Under the figure was a pool of blood that had already solidified. Gu Jiao knelt down on one knee and pushed aside the hair, covering the other's cheek, to take a look. Mo Qianxue? Medical Center. The last patient also left, and the second boss was about to close the door. But at this moment, a small figure in green strode in carrying a woman covered in blood. The second boss was almost hit. He hurriedly dodged and looked at the person who came. Then he let out a surprised voice. "Little Gu? Who is she?" "Prepare hot water." Gu Jiao only left the sentence, and then carried the dying Mo Qianxue back to her small courtyard. "Wait." The second boss looked in the direction she left in confusion. What kind of patient is she? And she brought her to her own courtyard. When the second boss asked someone to boil hot water and bring it over, Gu Jiao had already put Mo Qianxue on the operating table in the side room. "Do you need help?" the second boss asked. Gu Jiao opened the small medicine box, took out a pair of gloves, and put them on. "Is Dr. Song here?" She needed an assistant. The second boss said, "No, he went back." "Should I call him over?" Gu Jiao looked at the rapidly falling blood pressure on the blood pressure monitor. It's too late. The blood loss was serious, accompanied by tension pneumothorax. She could die at any time, and had to be operated on immediately. I'm here." Dr. Tong jogged over and stood outside the door. May I come in and help?" Gu Jiao nodded, took out a thick needle, and touched Mo Qianxue's chest with the tip of her finger. She found the second intercostal collarbone and inserted the needle. Digression, daily question. Are there any more monthly votes? Can I vote for Jiao Jiao? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/8964-2_89642826/1090-28310. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhpqg.com Bikaj mobile reading website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 534. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that you can't find online. Dr. Tong was shocked. He knew that Gu Shijio had done this for people, but she didn't do it raw. She didn't even have any drugs. However, in the next second, a stream of gas leaked out from the other end of the needle. Dr. Tong saw the patient's swollen chest slowly collapse. It wasn't appropriate to call it a collapse, but a return to normal. Then, the patient's breathing, which had been very difficult, became smooth. Dr. Tong couldn't believe it. Sure, he had seen this kind of disease when he was practicing medicine at the frontier. Some were caused by injuries, and some were caused by spontaneous causes. The doctors at the frontier were all helpless and could only watch the patient die. So, a single injection was enough? It's not a needle, it's a puncture to release the gas in the chest cavity. Gu Jiao had just finished when Mo Qianxue suddenly coughed. She was injured all over, and a small cough could be fatal. As expected, Gu Jiao heard a small crack. Her ribs were broken. Or rather, they were already broken. However, this cough affected the broken ribs and made the situation worse. Her chest swelled again, and her blood pressure continued to drop rapidly. Dr. Tong had seen Gu Jiao use a blood pressure monitor in the casualty barracks, and he knew that this was a very dangerous sign. He was stunned. What happened? Suddenly, acute hemopneumothorax. Gu Jiao took out a negative pressure water bottle from the small medicine box, poured in saline, and inserted a drainage tube. Lower the bottle 2 feet, she said to Dr. Tong. Okay. Dr. Tong put the bottle 2 feet below the bed and found a stool that was just right. Gu Jiao pulled out the puncture needle from Mo Qianxue's chest. After local infiltration anesthesia, Gu Jiao used a scalpel to cut a small window and inserted the other end of the drainage tube into Mo Qianxue's chest. If the drainage process didn't go well, Mo Qianxue would have to perform a thoracotomy. She had lost too much blood, and another major surgery would likely kill her. The water bottle didn't move for a full 30 seconds. Just as Gu Jiao took out the anesthetic and prepared to perform the thoracotomy, the water bottle finally began to bubble. Gu Jiao's expression was as calm as ever, but Dr. Tong still felt the change in her aura. Is this enough? Dr. Tong asked in a low voice. It's a good sign. Gu Jiao looked at the wound on Mo Qianxue's thigh and said, "Prepare for the suture operation now." Dr. Tong put on the patient's chest. In addition to her broken ribs and blood pneumothorax, Mo Qianxue also had 2 fatal wounds. One was a broken artery in her thigh, and the other was a knife wound on her abdomen. She had lost too much blood. Gu Jiao didn't know how she was still alive. She needed a blood transfusion, but after testing the blood type of everyone in the clinic, only Gu Jiao's blood matched hers. "I'll leave the final suture to you," Gu Jiao said to Dr. Tong. Dr. Tong nodded solemnly. Gu Jiao sat on the chair next to Mo Qianxue, installed a white filter on the foretube, and transfused her blood into Mo Qianxue's body. Dr. Tong didn't know how much blood Gu Jiao had given to the patient. He just watched as Gu Jiao's ruddy face turned pale little by little. But he couldn't be impatient. If he was impatient, he would make mistakes, and if he made a mistake, Dr. Gu would have to give more blood. Dr. Tong forced himself to calm down. If it was Dr. Gu, how would she do it? Thinking of this, his trembling hands gradually calmed down. When the last wound was sutured, Gu Jiao had already fallen asleep on the back of the chair. The white snow outside the room reflected a large amount of light, making it hard to tell if it was dawn. Dr. Tong was soaked and exhausted, but he didn't rest immediately. He strictly followed Gu Jiao's instructions after every operation and dealt with all the medical supplies. In fact, Gu Jiao had never taught him anything. He observed everything on his own. He was very attentive, and Gu Jiao trusted him. Otherwise, Gu Jiao wouldn't have fallen asleep. When Dr. Tong could finally breathe a sigh of relief, Mo Qianxue slowly woke up on the operating table. Mo Qianxue only woke up for a very short moment. She saw a young man wearing a mask and strange clothes sitting on the chair next to her. Their arms were connected to something, and the young man's blood flowed into her body. Dr. Tong didn't notice that Mo Qianxue had woken up. When he closed the small medicine box and turned to check on Mo Qianxue, she had already fallen asleep again. Dr. Tong took Mo Qianxue's blood pressure. She was in good condition. He stopped the blood transfusion. He called Gu Jiao twice. "Dr. Gu, Dr. Gu." Unfortunately, Gu Jiao didn't respond. She was probably exhausted or weak from blood loss. Dr. Tong couldn't bear to disturb her any longer, so he found a blanket and covered her. Next, he moved Mo Qianxue to the bed. Although he was a man, he was weak, so he had to call for help. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a tall and slender figure standing in the corridor. He was very tall, and wore a light green cloak. The light from the snow reflected on his face, revealing his jade-like, exquisite appearance. Dr. Tong had never seen such a handsome man before. He was stunned. The man spoke first. "Is the operation done?" His voice was slightly magnetic, cool, and low. It was a voice that matched his appearance. Yes, it's done," Dr. Tong stammered. "May I go in?" the man asked again. Yes. Actually, he couldn't. Outsiders couldn't enter the operating room. Dr. Tong didn't know what he had said. He had lived for most of his life, but this was the first time he had seen a godlike person. He was allowed to be stunned. Xiao Hung stepped into the room. As he passed by, Dr. Tong noticed that his shoulders were covered with snow. It seemed that this young man had been waiting for them in the snowy night for as long as they had been in the operation. Xiao Hung came to Gu Jiao, bent his tall body, and called softly, "Jiao Jiao." Gu Jiao's breathing was even and long. Xiao Hung took off his leather gloves. One hand went around Gu Jiao's back, the other around Gu Jiao's knees, and carried her up. Gu Jiao was wrapped up tightly, and not even her small head was exposed to the wind and snow. Dr. Tong was dumbfounded as he watched the young man carry Dr. Gu out of the operating room. Dr. Gu was covered from head to toe. The only reason he could recognize her was because of the shoes on her feet. This Dr. Tong couldn't believe his own eyes after witnessing God Killer Gu's massacre of the heavens and earth. Had killing God Gu ever been so obedient? Although he was asleep, his aura was not the same as usual. Xiao Hung carried Gu Jiao to the next room. He had lit the brazier early, so the room was still warm. Unfortunately, Gu Jiao had given too much blood. Her hands and feet were cold, and her body temperature was very low. Xiao Hung gently placed her on the bed, took off his cloak with snowflakes, and took off her shoes and outerwear. He pulled the quilt over her, but she was shivering from the cold. Xiao Hung covered her with 2 quilts, but it still didn't help. Xiao Heng's eyes darkened. Why would you risk your life for anyone? Have you ever thought about your own life? She was like this. If someone treated her well, she would treat them very well. Xiao Hung wasn't like that. When he was young, there were too many people who treated him well. He was used to it. He wouldn't let them down, but he wouldn't be too grateful either. Had she not been treated well when she was young? So much so that if someone treated her well, she would repay them many times over. Xiao Heng's heart suddenly hurt. He took off his cold outer clothes, pulled open the quilt, and lay down, wrapping his arms around her small body that was shivering from the cold. He hugged her tightly, his lips kissing her cold forehead. His body was burning hot, and Gu Jiao's body was no longer cold. She stopped trembling and laid quietly in his arms. Xiao Hung untied her hair tie and gently spread her soft hair on the pillow, not bearing to break a single strand. The room was very quiet, so quiet that only their even breathing could be heard. Xiao Heng's back was already covered in sweat. This temperature was a bit hot for him, but it was just right for Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao snuggled into his arms, finding a comfortable position. Xiao Hung was burning hot, but he couldn't bear to let go of her. He also didn't sleep all night, and now he was a little sleepy. He closed his eyes, intending to fall into a deep sleep. All of a sudden, a small, restless hand reached over. He was hugging her tightly, so it was normal for her hand to have nowhere to rest. At first, the hand was only on his waist, but after a while, it moved to his chest. Because he was hugging her, the corner of his shirt was slightly lifted, revealing his attractive abdominal muscles. The hand used 2 fingers to sneak in, and as it walked, it slipped in. Xiao Hung didn't move. The hand became bolder, touching and pinching, and after pinching his chest, it went to his abdominal muscles. Xiao Hung watched the hand slide all the way down, and his eyes narrowed. "You're awake." Gu Jiao closed her eyes. "I'm not." Xiao Hung, digression. The 3rd night watch is here. Is there a monthly ticket for me to sneak in? The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is more complete and updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found online here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_8964286/1090225559. HTML Genius. Memorize the website address in a second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 535. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. No. HM? Xiao Hong raised an eyebrow and gritted his teeth as a muffled sound came from between his teeth. However, the person who had been caught didn't seem to have a guilty conscience. Her cold fingertips continued to move downwards. Xiao Hong was so angry that he laughed. Who was the person with the thickest skin in the world? It was none other than this girl. Xiao Hong was a shy person. Normally, just holding hands would cause his face to blush and his heart to beat for a long time. However, he couldn't stand a certain someone taking advantage of him again and again. Moreover, she was taking advantage of him so confidently. Did this girl really think that he didn't dare to do anything to her? He pinched her smooth little chin and said with a hint of threat, "You don't want to sleep anymore, do you?" Gu Jiao's little hand paused. Her eyes were still closed as she said, "I want to." "No, you don't want to." After Xiao Hong said this, he flipped over and put his elbows on both sides of her body, gently pressing her under his body. She was the one who teased him first, so she couldn't blame him for not letting her sleep properly. He lowered his head and covered her soft lips. From the moment she rushed back in the snow and appeared in front of him to say, "Happy birthday," official Xiao to him. He had wanted to do this. He tried hard to restrain himself. This girl didn't know how hard it was for him to restrain himself, but she easily broke through all of his restraints. After resting at home for a few days, his lips that had been cracked by the wind and snow were moist and soft again. His breathing was disorderly, and his heart almost jumped out of his chest. He briefly let go of her before the last bit of him collapsed. "Your face is red," Gu Jiao said. "Don't talk." He buried his head in her neck. "Your ears are also red," Gu Jiao said again. "Gu Jiao Jiao." His voice was hoarse. Gu Jiao tilted her head slightly and whispered into his red ears, "Your voice isn't even your own." Xiao Heng's breathing stagnated. "Gu Jiao Jiao Jiao." "Yes," Gu Jiao replied obediently. This answer melted Xiao Heng's heart. The flames of shame and anger were instantly extinguished by a basin of ice water. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at the person beneath him. A certain someone was still sitting there with his eyes closed. Xiao Hong moved his elbow inwards and hugged her even tighter. Then the corners of his lips curled up. He laughed and said, "Aren't you still asleep? Why can you still see? Try being stubborn again." Xiao Hong saw that under her tightly shut eyelids, her eyeballs were moving. Xiao Hong couldn't help but laugh. He pressed his forehead against hers and whispered in an extremely bewitching voice, "You can't speak, hmm?" His voice was so pleasant that Gu Jiao's ears melted. Gu Jiao paused for a moment. "You're really delicious." "Xiao Hong, how did the topic change so quickly?" "All right, come, let's talk about a few coins today." Xiao Hong looked at a certain someone who refused to open her eyes. He was amused. "Is that so? I didn't even get to eat. How can I be delicious?" "I ate." Gu Jiao blindly raised her hand and touched his cheek. Then she touched his lips. Xiao Hong was convinced that she could still close her eyes and act like she hadn't woken up even in this state. In ancient times, there were thieves who covered their ears to steal a bell. Today, there was Gu Jiao who played with her eyes closed. Xiao Hong wanted to laugh. He whispered in her ear, "Gu Jiao 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 Jiao, this isn't eating." He spoke quickly and regretted it as soon as he finished speaking. His words were a bit too rash. As if he was afraid that she would feel awkward when she realized what he said, he quickly changed the topic. How old is the girl over there? Since he knew that she wasn't the real Gu Jiao's mother, and she also admitted that she wasn't Gu Jiao's mother, there was no need for him to pretend that he didn't know anything. Although there were indeed many things that he didn't know. For example, her origin, and why she became Gu Jiao's mother. Gu Jiao didn't know that so many things flashed through his mind in such a short time. She answered honestly, a girl reaches adulthood at 18 and gets married at 20. Reaching adulthood was being of marriageable age. Getting married was getting married. Xiao Heng understood this. Xiao Heng stroked her hair and asked softly, then you want me to wait for you to grow up? Do you want me to wait until you're 20 or 18? Gu Jiao closed her eyes and was about to speak. Xiao Heng said in a hoarse voice, 18. Gu Jiao, I didn't say that. Xiao Heng, you said it. I heard it. Gu Jiao, you cheated. Xiao Heng chuckled softly and gently touched her cheek. Yes, I cheated. But Dr. Gu, are you sure you can wait until you're 18? Gu Jiao said seriously, of course I can. Xiao Heng looked at her with a smile. Do you want to take out your hand first before saying this? Gu Jiao tilted her head. I fell asleep. Xiao Heng chuckled softly. Okay, I got it. He lowered his head and covered her lips again. It was lingering and restrained, domineering and gentle. Gu Jiao fell asleep in great joy. When she woke up, she felt indescribably refreshed. Xiao Heng was no longer there. He left a note on the bedside table, saying that he went to the Ministry of Justice to help with the case. The words were full of business, and there was no ambiguous tone. However, Gu Jiao's favorite snacks and dried meat were placed on the table. Gu Jiao tasted a snack. Oh, it's so sweet. After Gu Jiao finished tidying up, she went to Mo Qianxue's ward next door. Speaking of which, the reason why this room was changed into a ward was thanks to Gu Qinglin. During the days when Gu Qinglin stayed here, Gu Jiao simply remodeled the room and added an operating bed. At the same time, she kept the original bed. Dr. Tong stayed up all night, and Dr. Song came over to change his shift. At this moment, Dr. Song was in the room. Dr. Song was not idle while taking care of Mo Qianxue. He was looking through the medical records sorted out during this period, hoping to improve his medical skills as soon as possible. Gu Jiao entered the room. When Dr. Song heard the movement, he got up and greeted Gu Jiao. Dr. Gu. How is she? Gu Jiao asked. Dr. Song said, there is no serious problem for the time being. There is no postoperative infection. The drainage of pleural effusion and gas is also good. During the war in Yuegu City, Dr. Song followed Gu Jiao to perform several pneumothorax surgeries, so he knows what to pay attention to. Gu Jiao nodded. You go and rest for a while, I'll watch. Dr. Song didn't refuse. Gu Jiao doesn't like superficial skills, such as deliberately pretending to be diligent. A person's diligence is reflected in his medical skills and medical ethics, not in these trivial matters. I'll come back after having a meal, Dr. Song said. Gu Jiao, okay. Mo Qianxue's case spread throughout the capital overnight. After all, she was the most popular courtesan in Xianla House and died so miserably. Hua Xiao was the biggest suspect, but all kinds of evidence finally showed that Hua Xiao was not the murderer of Mo Qianxue. Because of Mo Qianxue's case, the tea house, which was supposed to open after the 15th day of the month, started to open in advance. There were a lot of people sitting in the tea house to listen to the gossip. Regarding Mo Qianxue's murder, there were many different theories. Some said it was a vendetta, some said it was a crime of passion, and some said it was a competition between people of the same trade. Soft Fragrance Pavilion and Cool Breeze Brothel, whose reputation was second only to Immortal Music Abode, suddenly became the target of public criticism. It's been 3 days, but I heard that the murderer hasn't been found yet. In Gu Jiao's small courtyard, the second boss and Gu Jiao were sitting in the corridor and drinking tea. The one who spoke was the second boss. These days, the medical center was not busy, so he came to find Gu Jiao to gossip. The second boss said, "The murderer is too cruel. Not only did he kill, but also cut her face 17 or 18 times. How much hatred and resentment is there? Not 17 or 18 times, but 5 times." An arrogant woman's voice came from the ward. The second boss was stunned and looked back. "Who's talking?" "Your grandaunt." The second boss, "Is that girl awake?" The second boss asked Gu Jiao in a low voice. "Should be." Gu Jiao put down the teacup, got up, and opened the door of the ward. The drainage tube on Mo Qianxua's body had been taken off, and she was neatly dressed. Of course, they were all Gu Jiao's clothes. Gu Jiao was taller than her, but the loose clothes were just right for her to wear as a hospital gown. "How do you feel?" Gu Jiao came to the bed, picked up the stethoscope, and listened to her heart and lungs. Mo Qianxua blocked her hand, looked her up and down, and said angrily, "It was you, wasn't it?" This question came out of nowhere. Gu Jiao seemed to understand. She did not deny it. "Yes, it's me," Mo Qianxua said coldly. "You're a woman?" Gu Jiao answered honestly. "Yes." Mo Qianxua's tone became colder. "You're not a mute?" Gu Jiao continued to answer honestly. "Yes, I'm not." Mo Qianxua gritted her teeth. "Liar." Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao pushed away Mo Qianxua's hand. Mo Qianxua struggled, but she was seriously injured and was no match for Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao grabbed her wrist. "Listen to me, don't move, or the wound will open again." Mo Qianxua's lips moved a few times. Then she snorted coldly and turned her face away. Gu Jiao's stethoscope went into Mo Qianxua's clothes. Only a thin dudu between them. Gu Jiao listened carefully, without any distracting thoughts. Mo Qianxua blushed. Her eyelashes trembled and she said, "Aren't you going to ask me how I found out?" Gu Jiao listened to the first part, then put the stethoscope on Mo Qianxua's back. "Oh, how did you find out?" Mo Qianxua felt an itch on her back, and her whole body tensed up. She bit her lip. I don't want to talk about it." Gu Jiao. "Are all women so fickle?" Gu Jiao did not intend to ask further, but Mo Qianxua said, "I recognized you that night." She was referring to the night Gu Jiao picked her up. Gu Jiao was wearing a mask, but it was different from wearing a mask. But Mo Qianxua was very familiar with her green clothes. Mo Qianxua was not in a coma all the time these days. She would wake up occasionally, and when she woke up, she could hear the commotion in the yard. After listening for a while, she naturally guessed Gu Jiao's identity. "You're recovering well." Gu Jiao put away the stethoscope. "It's not a big problem for now, but pneumothorax is prone to recurring attacks, so you have to be careful in the future." "Be careful of what?" Mo Qianxua asked angrily. Gu Jiao thought for a moment. "Don't be angry." Mo Qianxua. The second boss did not enter the room, but waited outside. Gu Jiao came out after examining Mo Qianxua. "Why do you look like you have a headache?" Just as the second boss finished asking, a vase smashed against the door and broke. Mo Qianxua's teeth were clenched. "You little liar. When I recover, I'll teach you a lesson." Gu Jiao sighed helplessly. "Well, that's what happened." The second boss. She looks just like my wife when she's angry." "But who is that girl?" the second boss asked in a low voice. "I'm your aunt." Mo Qianxua's voice was heard. The second boss trembled. No. She could hear that. "Gu Jiao, do you know martial arts?" Mo Qianxua's anger flowed like the Yellow River. "Also, didn't you want to know who the murderer of Immortal Music House is? Why can't the authorities catch the murderer?" It's me. That person wanted to kill me, but I killed her in the end. Then I ruined her face and escaped like a cicada." The second boss looked like he was struck by lightning. "You ruined her face and she escaped." "Wait, you are." Mo Qianxua smiled coldly. "Yes, I'm a dead courtesan of Immortal Music House, Mo Qianxua." The second boss pinched his philtrum and fainted again. Mo Qianxua's situation was a bit special. Gu Jiao told her family that she would be staying at the clinic for the next few days. Xiao Heng came over for the first 2 nights. On the third night, there was a murder case in the capital. The suspect was Assistant Minister Lee of the Ministry of Justice. Assistant Minister Lee was one of the officials in charge of Mo Chinchua's case. His character was trusted by the Ministry of Justice. In order to get first-hand evidence, the Ministry of Justice took Xiaoheng out of the capital to investigate the case. In the clinic, Mo Chinchua's anger had not subsided. She wanted to quarrel with Gu Jiao, but Gu Jiao was not someone who could quarrel with people. She did not even show any expression and never got angry. She did not give people the pleasure of quarreling. Therefore, Mo Chinchua grabbed the second boss and gave him a good beating. The second boss was bald. When women quarreled, they could be compared to thousands of soldiers and horses. That night, after Mo Chinchua gave the second boss a good beating as usual, she closed her eyes and snorted coldly. In the middle of the night, several black shadows quietly sneaked into the small courtyard of the medical center. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that you can't find on the internet are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/89642_89642826/1090057448. HTML Genius memorized this website's address: www.zhpqg.com. Bikuga mobile reading website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 536. The latest chapter of the book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. There were no patients left in the clinic except for Mo Chinchua. The doctors and staff on duty were all asleep, and Mo Chinchua was no exception. The entire clinic was quiet, and only the sound of the wind could be heard. The sound of the wind perfectly concealed the movements of the men in black. Of course, their original movements were very light, which was enough to show the depth of their skills. The group of people jumped over the tall wall and landed silently. Only when their clothes rubbed against each other did they make a small noise, but that was all. A gust of wind was enough to cover it up. When they reached the stairs, the leader stopped and raised his hand to signal for everyone to stop. The others all stopped. The leader went to the corridor first and listened to every room with vigilance. Finally, he settled on the room on the east side. He took out a dagger and inserted it into the gap of the door, intending to pry open the latch. However, he found that there was no latch behind the door. Mo Chinchua was a patient, and the doctor had to check on her at any time. Naturally, she wouldn't lock the door. The black-clothed man put away the dagger and gently pushed open the door. He gave a look to the black-clothed men behind him. Everyone understood and rushed toward the room. Mo Chinchua was sleeping. She was so angry that she woke up from her dream, that she was so angry that she woke up. When she opened her eyes, she felt a cold light flash past her eyes. She frowned and rolled to the side. A cold, sharp blade pierced into the place where she was originally lying. The man in black saw that she had dodged, and his eyes turned cold. He raised his sword and slashed at her again. Mo Chinchua took out the silver needles under her pillow and shot them at the man. However, she was seriously injured, and both her internal energy and speed were greatly reduced. The black-clothed man clearly saw the silver needles that she shot out. He waved his sword and blocked all the silver needles. Mo Chinchua felt a pain in her chest. She tried to grab the dagger on the bedside table, but her hand was kicked away by the man in black. Mo Chinchua was shaken by his inner energy. She tasted blood in her throat and unconsciously spat it out. The man in black aimed at her head and swung his sword down. At that critical moment, a dagger flew through the air and stabbed the man in black in the back, piercing his heart without the slightest deviation. The black-clothed man's eyes suddenly widened, and his body stiffened in disbelief. In the next second, the sword in his hand fell, and he also fell straight to the bed. Mo Chinchua looked at the man in black beside her with disgust. She wanted nothing more than to kick him off the bed. At the same time, the other 3 black-clothed men in the room quickly reacted. They hurriedly drew their swords from their waists. Unfortunately, before the sword could leave its sheath, it was pressed back by a cold hand. With a clang, the sharp blade returned to its sheath. Before they could react, they were knocked down one by one. Gu Jiao was clear-headed. She stepped on the other party's chest with one foot and looked down at him. She said indifferently, "Who sent you?" That person gritted his teeth and spat out a mouthful of black blood. "They have poison sacs in their mouths. We can't get anything out of them," Mo Chinchua said, panting. Gu Jiao calmly removed her foot. She stepped over the black-clothed men on the floor and came to the bed. She grabbed the black-clothed man's body and dragged it out like a sack. Then, she wiped her hands and returned to the bed. She looked at Mo Chinchua with a calm expression. Mo Chinchua spat out blood. The blanket was stained with blood. Gu Jiao handed her a handkerchief. Mo Chinchua was stunned. "What?" Gu Jiao handed it to her. Mo Chinchua still didn't understand. Gu Jiao held the handkerchief in her hand and bent down to wipe the blood from the corner of her mouth. Gu Jiao came in a hurry and was only wearing a thin nightgown. Her aura immediately enveloped Mo Chinchua. Mo Chinchua looked at her calm eyes. Unlike the gentleness of ordinary women, her eyes revealed a heroic spirit. Of course, they were also very exquisite. If it wasn't for the birthmark on her face, this would be a face that both men and women would be captivated by. Gu Jiao was focused on wiping Mo Chinchua's blood and didn't notice Mo Chinchua's fixed gaze. Nightgowns were different from formal undergarments. They were spacious, and she happened to be leaning over. Mo Chinchua didn't do it on purpose, but accidentally looked in. This figure was too, such a seductive figure. How many corsets did she wear to turn herself into a man? Little liar. Mo Chinchua gritted her teeth. Gu Jiao. Why was she a little liar again? Mo Chinchua snorted. "I don't want to sleep here anymore. That stinky man touched my bed." Mo Chinchua was the top courtesan in a mortal music house, but she had never been touched by another man. Gu Jiao was the first. No, to be exact, the second. That's not right either. She wasn't a man. Mo Chinchua was angry again. She glared at Gu Jiao angrily. Gu Jiao was confused. This room was indeed unsuitable for people to live in. Gu Jiao decided to bring Mo Chinchua to the next room. Since Mo Chinchua couldn't walk, Gu Jiao could only carry her over. There was still Gu Jiao's scent and warmth in the quilt. Mo Chinchua didn't feel cold after lying down. She even felt a little warm. Gu Jiao went to call the servants and asked them to throw the men in black out of the courtyard. There was no need to report it to the authorities. They wouldn't be able to find anything. Gu Jiao went back to the room, closed the door, and lay down next to Mo Chinchua. Mo Chinchua couldn't sleep. She stared at the top of the bed for a while, and then suddenly turned to look at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao's eyes were slightly closed, and her breathing was calm. Mo Chinchua opened her mouth to speak, but stopped. Gu Jiao opened her mouth. "Who are they?" Mo Chinchua knew that the moment she said that they had poison sacs in their mouths, she had exposed the fact that she recognized them. Mo Chinchua lowered her eyes and said in a low voice, "People from a mortal music house." Gu Jiao wasn't surprised by this answer. She still asked in confusion, "Why do they want to kill you?" Mo Chinchua said, "I don't know. I went out for a while and then came back. I was killed for no reason." Gu Jiao asked, "Where did you go?" Mo Chinchua was silent. Gu Jiao said again, "Okay, I'll change the question. Is the owner of a mortal music house really dead?" Gu Jiao didn't wait for a response. She opened her eyes and turned her head. She saw that Mo Chinchua had fallen asleep on her side. Under the quilt, Mo Chinchua's fingers were carefully pinching a section of her sleeve. Gu Jiao didn't speak again. She turned her face away and soon closed her eyes and fell asleep. In the following few nights, Mo Qianxue encountered several waves of assassins. With Gu Jiao around, they were all scared but not in danger. Those people seemed to have learned their lesson. They didn't fight Gu Jiao head-on and only restrained Gu Jiao from attacking Mo Qianxue. Gu Jiao dealt with the first two waves of assassins with ease. However, by the third wave, Gu Jiao could clearly feel that the opponent's strength was not on the same level as the previous assassins. 3 men in black, all of them were men of sacrifice. Are they also from Immortal Music House? Gu Jiao asked while holding Mo Qianxue in her arms to avoid the ambush. Mo Qianxue shook her head. I don't know. I don't know them. She really didn't know them and had never seen them before. Mo Qianxue's expression was complicated as she watched Gu Jiao fight with the 3 men of sacrifice. These 3 men of sacrifice were slightly weaker than the Dragon Shadow Guards. With Gu Jiao's current strength, she could deal with them. However, the prerequisite was that they had to fight Gu Jiao properly. However, their target was Mo Qianxue. This made the battle even more difficult. When the 3 men of sacrifice were finally dealt with, Gu Jiao's arm hurt a little. Mo Qianxue sat in the snow, her ankle swollen and painful. Gu Jiao knelt down on one knee and checked her ankle. Mo Qianxue's gaze fell on the bloodstains on her sleeve. Her expression changed. Your hand is bleeding. Gu Jiao didn't mind. She lifted Mo Qianxue's swollen ankle. It's not dislocated. It's just sprained. It'll heal in a few days. As soon as she finished speaking, a cold arrow shot out from the darkness. In fact, Gu Jiao could have dodged it herself. That would have been much safer. However, Gu Jiao didn't do so. She suddenly turned around and blocked Mo Qianxue with one hand. With the other hand, she grabbed the dagger on the ground and shot it at the arrow. The arrow was unbelievably fast. It met the arrow almost at the same time the dagger was shot out. If she had been a little slower, she wouldn't have been able to block the arrow. Mo Qianxue looked at Gu Jiao, who was blocking in front of her. Her eyes flashed slightly, and a trace of complicated emotions flashed past her eyes. The archer didn't stop there. He shot another arrow at Gu Jiao. This time, Gu Jiao caught it directly. Gu Jiao had to deal with the assassin in the dark, so her back was completely exposed to Mo Qianxue. Mo Qianxue stared at Gu Jiao's defenseless back. She silently took out the silver needle hidden in her sleeve. The needle was dipped in poison. The tip of the needle was black. A single needle could kill a person instantly. Mo Qianxue clenched her fists. Her eyes flashed with hesitation, confusion, and struggle. Then, she gritted her teeth. Her eyes turned cold, as if she had finally made a decision. She suddenly shot all the silver needles in her hand in the direction of Gu Jiao. The silver needles carried all her internal energy. They brushed past Gu Jiao's neck. A few muffled groans came from the dark night, and 3 black-clothed men fell from different directions with a clatter. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more complete. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that can't be found online are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_89642826/1090013886. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 537. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. Gu Jiao thought there was only one man in black. Who would have thought there were 2 more hiding in the dark? Mo Qianxue was already severely injured. and this attack, with all her strength, had almost drained her of all her energy. The moment the three men in black fell from above, she couldn't hold on any longer. She spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. Gu Jiao bent down and carried Mo Qianxue back to the room. The clinic's manservant would clean up the place. Mo Qianxue was covered in snow. The wound on her leg was slightly torn. Blood seeped out and dyed her nightgown red. Gu Jiao took off her clothes and stuffed them under the blanket. Then she opened the closet door and found a clean set of nightgown for her to change into. In a daze, Mo Qianxue felt someone touch her body. Her face turned pale, and she grabbed the other person's hand. "It's me," Gu Jiao said. Mo Qianxue let go of her hand. She leaned her head against Gu Jiao's chest and fell into a deep sleep. In fact, several groups of people had already come to the clinic. However, Gu Jiao clearly felt that Mo Qianxue's mood had changed. Maybe it was because tonight was especially serious. In the latter half of the night, Mo Qianxue even had nightmares. She was afraid. Her face was pale and her body trembled slightly. It was as if she had fallen into an endless nightmare. Mo Qianxue, Mo Qianxue. Gu Jiao tried to wake her up. Mo Qianxue opened her eyes and looked at Gu Jiao in fear. She did not know if she was still in a dream. She did not respond and only held Gu Jiao's hand tightly, like a drowning person holding onto the last piece of driftwood. "Are you so scared?" Gu Jiao murmured. She didn't pull her hand back. Gu Jiao took the time to go back to Clearwater Alley. Little Jing Kong hadn't seen Gu Jiao for a few days. He felt wronged and teared up. "Jiao Jiao." He rushed over and hugged Gu Jiao. Although he was 5 years old, he looked just 1 year younger than his peers. Gu Jiao easily lifted him up. Little Jing Kong sat in Gu Jiao's arms and shook his little head. "Jiao Jiao, is the medical center done?" Little Jing Kong asked. "Not yet." Gu Jiao entered the room and greeted Yao Shi. Yao Shi had just finished bathing Gu Xiaobao. "You're back. There's no need to go to the clinic, right?" Yao Shi warmly asked. "We still have to go over tonight," Gu Jiao said. Little Jing Kong thought for a while and got down from Gu Jiao's arms. He moved a chair for Gu Jiao and said, "Jiao Jiao is tired. Jiao Jiao, take a seat." Gu Xiaobao, wow. Yao Shi heard her son's voice and laughed. Did Xiaobao speak? Does Xiaobao want sister to sit down? Gu Xiaobao widened his big round eyes and looked at Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao walked over and poked Gu Xiaobao's face. Gu Xiaobao chuckled. A 3-month-old child could laugh, but Gu Xiaobao was a baby who did not cry, make a fuss, or like to laugh. Other than a chuckle on the day he turned 3 months old, he did not make a sound after that. Gu Jiao found it amusing and gently poked his chubby little face again. Gu Xiaobao laughed again. Gu Jiao poked him again, and Gu Xiaobao laughed again. Little Jing Kong clapped his hands excitedly and jumped up and down. Younger brother is laughing. Younger brother is laughing. At this moment, Marquis Gu came over from the newly renovated residence. It snowed heavily a few days ago, and the finishing work was delayed. Now that the weather was better, he led the workmen from the Ministry of Works to rush the work day and night. Today, he was here to transport materials and took a detour to see his wife and son. When he reached the door, he heard Little Jing Kong's voice. He held his breath and really heard his son's laughter. His son knew how to laugh. Marquis Gu walked into the house in high spirits. "Son, father is here to see you." He did not look at Gu Jiao and went straight to his wife, Yao Shi, and carried Gu Xiaobao over with fatherly love. Then Gu Xiaobao stopped laughing. Marquis Gu teased him. "Son, give father a smile." Under his father's expectant gaze, Gu Xiaobao calmly took out his little finger, put it in his mouth, and fell asleep in a second. Marquis Gu. Mo Qianxue slept until the afternoon. Midway, Dr. Tong came to check on her. He took her pulse and checked on her wound. Everything was fine. Because of the accident at Xian Le House, the tea house reopened early. There were more people on the streets and more headaches, fevers, and drunkenness. Today, a wave of drunkards and injured patients came to the clinic. There were not many doctors, and they could not take care of them all. However, this had nothing to do with Mo Qianxue. She did not need any additional treatment and only needed to quietly recuperate in the room. A maid brought food over. Mo Qianxue ate a little. Her leg was injured and her ribs were broken. She could not walk and could only lie on the bed in boredom. She sat on the bed and clutched the handkerchief in her hand. She snorted. Where did the little liar go? Suddenly, a figure flashed through the door. Mo Qianxue's eyes flashed with vigilance. Who is it? The unlatched door was gently pushed open from the outside. First, an exquisite embroidered fan reached in from the crack of the door. Then, the owner of the fan walked in with light steps. It was a pair of brand new pink lotus embroidered shoes. They were made of real gold and were extremely expensive. In the whole capital, only the courtesans of Xian Lu House could afford to wear such shoes. The vigilance in Mo Qianxue's eyes dissipated and was replaced by a faint disgust. What are you doing here? Mo Qianxue asked coldly. Hua Xiao smiled brightly. I'm here to see my elder sister. Hua Xiao closed the door behind her and walked toward Mo Qianxue's bedside. Mo Qianxue said with disdain, Who is your elder sister? Don't randomly recognize relatives here. Oh. Hua Xiao covered half of her face with the fan and laughed. We are all girls in the brothel. Who is more noble than who? Don't make it sound like your elder sister is a daughter of a good family. Mo Qianxue impatiently said, If you have something to say it quickly. Hua Xiao laughed. I haven't seen you for a few days, but you are still so vulgar. Does that little Gongzi also know your character? Is it hard for you to pretend in front of him? Ah, I forgot, he is not a little Gongzi, but a little girl. Elder sister, your infatuation has been misplaced. Mo Qianxue looked at her coldly. Hua Xiao, do you have nothing to do, so you came to tell me this? Hua Xiao removed the round fan in front of her face, revealing an innocent look. Of course not. I came to remind elder sister, don't forget your identity. Don't be a traitor of a mortal music house. Mo Qianxue turned her face and said lightly, I didn't. Hua Xiao sneered and took out 3 silver needles from her arms. So you didn't kill those 3 people? These silver needles are made by imitating the Tang Sex Tang flower needle. In the capital, except for you, it seems that no one else uses this kind of silver needle. Mo Qianxue's hand holding the handkerchief tightened and said, without changing her expression, I don't need to explain to you what I do. Hua Xiao threw the 3 silver needles on Mo Qianxue's quilt. Young master asked me to come. Mo Qianxue's eyes moved slightly, and she said seriously, I killed those 3 people in order to gain her trust. Hua Xiao sat down on the edge of Mo Qianxue's bed and looked into Mo Qianxue's eyes with a smile. She doesn't trust you enough? Mo Qianxue blinked lightly and looked up to meet Hua Xiao's eyes. Not enough, I didn't have a chance. Hua Xiao smiled, stood up and went to the wardrobe. She opened the door and brushed Gu Jiao's clothes with her fingertips. You slept in the same room and didn't have a chance? Who are you fooling? Then why don't you do it? Mo Qianxue asked. Hua Xiao closed the wardrobe door. I don't have sister's luck. Casually hooking up with a young master can become a big fish. Mo Qianxue glanced at her and said, It's good that you know you don't have the ability. Go back and tell young master that I will kill her. But I need time. 3 days. Hua Xiao stretched out 3 fingers. Mo Qianxue looked at Hua Xiao coldly. Hua Xiao smiled charmingly. Young master only wanted to give you 1 day, but I fought for 2 more days for sister. Sister, don't waste your sister's kindness. Hua Xiao. Mo Qianxue called out to Hua Xiao, who had turned and walked out. Hua Xiao stopped and looked back with a smile. Sister, is there anything else? Mo Qianxue suddenly shot out a silk thread and wrapped it around Hua Xiao's foot. Then she pulled it coldly, and the silk thread twisted off the embroidered shoes on Hua Xiao's foot. Mo Qianxue was not polite to Hua Xiao at all. If Hua Xiao's martial arts were not good, she would have fallen to the ground. Hua Xiao's face sank and she gritted her teeth. Mo Qianxue. Mo Qianxue said indifferently, Get out. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are novels with connotations that can't be found on the internet here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964/2_898226/10898223. HTML Genius. Remember the address of this site: www.zhbqg.com. Bikugo mobile version reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 538. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was also updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels were read for free. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online here. Clearwater Alley. Being ignored by his son, Marquis Gu felt a little embarrassed. He cleared his throat and placed his sleeping son back into Yao Shi's arms. Other than visiting the Yao family and his son, he had come today for another matter: Gu Jinyu's marriage. Gu Jinyu and Royal Prince were originally scheduled to get married before the new year. Who would have thought that other than the war, the commoners' marriages were not restricted? However, Royal Prince was an official of court, and Gu Jinyu was the daughter of a marquis. The two of them could not get married during a time of national crisis. Therefore, it was pushed back to a year later. It's next month. Marquis Gu said to Yao Shi, "Jinyu is your daughter. How can a daughter get married without her mother by her side? Why don't you follow me back to my residence for a few days and wait for Jinyu to get married?" The conflict between Yao Shi and the Marquis Fu mainly came from the fact that everyone in the Marquis Fu did not welcome her. Old Madame Gu was the leader, followed by Gu Changqing and the other two. As for the servants, they did not need to care too much. Anyway, they did not dare to cause trouble in front of Yao Shi. Now that all sorts of misunderstandings had been resolved, the Gu brothers no longer had any resentment towards Yao Shi. Marquis Gu felt that it was time to bring Yao Shi back to live. Yao Shi was a little hesitant. She knew that old Madame Gu still didn't want to see her son, who had appeared out of nowhere, and it was impossible for them to have no grudges between them. Moreover, even if she went back, Gu Yan and Gu Jiao would not go back with her. She couldn't bear to part with her children, and she also couldn't bear to part with this large family in Jadewater Lane. But Master Ho was right. Jinyu was also her daughter. Back then, Gu Samlang and his wife treated Jiao Jiao like a treasure. What reason did she have to treat Jinyu harshly? Mother's health hasn't been good recently. She can't manage the household. Marquis Gu looked at her and said. Yao Shi looked at Gu Jiao, who was fixing Kuju's flirtatious eyes in the inner courtyard, and said to Marquis Gu, "You've been here for so long. Why don't you talk to Jiao Jiao?" Marquis Gu scoffed. "She's the one who doesn't want to talk to me. I've been here for so long. Have you heard her call me father?" Yao Shi said, "Jiao Jiao is just not used to it. Moreover, do you treat Jiao Jiao like a father?" Marquis Gu hesitated. Yao Shi continued, "You even used a whip to hit her." "That's..." Marquis Gu coughed guiltily. "How long has it been? Do you still remember?" "I didn't know that she was our daughter and thought that she wanted to harm you." At the mention of this matter, Marquis Gu became angry. He had only whipped that girl once, and that girl bore a grudge to such an extent, opposing him at every turn. He even kidnapped his wife and son. 2 sons. Was it because he didn't act like a father? She was clearly the one who didn't act like a daughter. Can't she learn from Jinyu? Gentle and generous, delicate and cute? That's how the daughter of a marquis should be. Marquis Gu rolled his eyes and said, "If that girl was half as sensible as Jinyu, I wouldn't have doted on her so much." Yao Shi carried the sleeping Gu Xiaobao and stood up, looking at him with a frown. "You admit that you don't dote on Jiao Jiao?" "No, Marquis Gu was dazed. How could he speak so quickly? Also, How could Madam's angle be so tricky? Yao sure trembled with anger. So when you said that you dote on Jiao Jiao, you were lying to me. Marquis Gu panicked and quickly said, I didn't lie to you. I'm telling the truth. I dote on Jiao Jiao. I dote on her the most. Yao sure did not want to wake up her sleeping son, so she suppressed her anger and asked, Then let me ask you, what does Jiao Jiao like to eat the most? Marquis Gu opened his mouth. How could he know what that girl liked to eat the most? You can't even answer this, yet you say that you dote on Jiao Jiao. Yao sure said this, and carried Gu Xiaobao away, without looking back. Marquis Gu, sigh. Gu Yan and Gu Xiaoshan had gone to Master Lu's place in the southern wing and were not at home. Yao sure also ignored him. Marquis Gu rubbed his nose resentfully. Every strand of hair on his body spoke of the awkwardness in his heart. He was hesitating whether he should go back first. At this moment, little Jing Kong walked over. Little Jing Kong was Gu Jiao Jiao's little tail. Wherever Gu Jiao went, he would go. But now, he did not stick to Gu Jiao. Marquis Gu was quite surprised. He looked at this little kid who seemed to still be so small. For once, he asked in a pleasant tone, Why are you here? Little Jing Kong did not say anything. He walked to the front door cutely and stood on the doorstep. With his hands behind his back, he blinked and looked at Marquis Gu. Marquis Gu's mouth twitched. Are you chasing me away? Little Jing Kong shook his head. Jiao Jiao said that we must be polite children. Those who come are guests. We can't chase them away just because they don't welcome them. That's the adult's business. We just need to be obedient as children. Marquis Gu, who was rejected everywhere, finally left with his head covered in dirt. Gu Jiao fixed little Jing Kong's romantic eyes. Little Jing Kong could play could you happily again. Thank you, Jiao Jiao. Little Jing Kong stood under the romantic eyes and said cutely. Gu Jiao curved her lips and handed him the kuju on the stone table. Do you want to finish? Jiao Jiao, will you play with me? Little Jing Kong asked. Okay. Gu Jiao nodded. Gu Jiao played with little Jing Kong for a while. When the old chancellor came back to check on little Jing Kong's homework, he left reluctantly. Gu Jiao went to the clinic. She brought some candied fruits and hawthorn cakes made by the young master. When she entered the room, Mo Qianxue was leaning against the bed and sulking. When she saw her, she snorted coldly and rolled her eyes. She turned her body sideways and showed Gu Jiao the back of her head. Gu Jiao had always been right about people and not about things. She could indulge the people she accepted to do anything. Mo Qianxue's little temper was like a drizzle in her eyes, the kind that wouldn't even get her clothes wet. How do you feel today? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Dr. Gu asked routinely. Mo Qianxue grabbed the handkerchief and said angrily, Not good. I feel uncomfortable everywhere. Gu Jiao put the snacks on the bedside table and reached out to check her pulse. Really? Let me see. Mo Qianxue pulled back her hand. I won't show you, you little liar. She was so lively. It seemed that she had nothing to do in the afternoon. Gu Jiao was a doctor, so she naturally had to care about the patient's diet. She asked the maid and found that Mo Qianxue didn't eat much. There were 2 dishes and 1 soup, and she only ate 1 or 2 mouthfuls. Gu Jiao opened the food box and took out a stack of glittering hawthorn cakes, saying, This is my granduncle's hawthorn cake. Try it. When one person cared about another, the focus would become very strange. Mo Qianxue sneered, Your grandfather doesn't have a sister. How can you have a young master? Gu Jiao paused and looked at her. You investigated me. Mo Qianxue's eyes flashed. Oh no, she spilled the beans. Mo Qianxue was saved by Gu Jiao and brought back to a mortal music house. Only then did she recognize Gu Jiao as the mute youth who had taken liberties with her. Moreover, Gu Jiao had never said who she was or who her grandfather was. In other words, before she recognized Gu Jiao, she, Mo Qianxue, had investigated the daughter of Marquis Ding and Fu. This was very thought-provoking. Why did Mo Qianxue investigate her? Mo Qianxue composed herself and said in a normal tone, Is there a need to investigate this? The fact that the daughter of Marquis Ding and Fu works as a doctor in the medical hall, has long been known by everyone. Gu Jiao looked at her, without blinking. So you are so sure that I am that doctor? Mo Qianxue almost couldn't stand her seemingly casual, but hidden sharp gaze. Isn't your surname Gu? Gu Jiao indifferently placed the hawthorn cake in Mo Qianxue's hand. That's true. Mo Qianxue secretly let out a sigh of relief. Luckily, she was smart. After Gu Jiao gave the cake to Mo Qianxue, she went out to get medicine for Mo Qianxue. Consolidating one's foundation required proper Chinese medicine. After she left, Mo Qianxue took out a packet of medicinal powder from her chest and sprinkled it on a piece of hawthorn cake. She wiped away the excess medicinal powder, and a thin layer blended in with the sugar on the hawthorn cake. Not the slightest bit of it could be seen. When Gu Jiao returned to the room with a bowl of steaming hot medicine, Mo Qianxue was sitting coldly at the head of the bed. On the bedside table next to her was a plate of hawthorn cake. She coldly snorted and said, "What kind of rubbish taste is this? Did your great-aunt make it? If you don't want to deal with me, just say it. There's no need to buy things from a street stall to fool me." "Does it not taste good?" Gu Jiao asked strangely. Mo Qianxue angrily said, "It tastes terrible. If you don't believe me, try one yourself." Gu Jiao picked up the topmost piece of hawthorn cake. Mo Qianxue grabbed her hand and asked, "Aren't you afraid that I'll poison you?" Gu Jiao asked, "Will you?" Mo Qianxue slowly let go of her hand and said coldly, "Yes. Of course I will. I really want to poison you, you little liar." Gu Jiao tasted the hawthorn cake in her hand and frowned. "Oh, it seems a little too sour. I took the wrong one. This is for my great-aunt. Dr. Gu, there's a patient here who fainted." Xiao Sanzi's voice came from outside the courtyard. "Coming." Gu Jiao put down the piece of hawthorn cake and turned to leave the room. Mo Qianxue looked at the piece of hawthorn cake that Gu Jiao had taken a bite of, then looked at the bird and half of the cake on the snow outside the window. She angrily kicked her feet under the quilt. Next time I won't be soft-hearted. If I'm soft-hearted again, I'll write my name upside down." Digression. Let me guess. The comment section is full of "Hello, Shui Qianma, 2333. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated at a faster rate. Millions of novels are free to read. All the novels that you can't find online are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964/2_89642_1089811012. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugu mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 539. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with a deeper meaning that cannot be found online are all available here. On the other side, the Minister of Justice took Xiao Heng out of the city to investigate a case that very night. Xiao Heng was only a scribe in the Ministry of Justice. Logically speaking, he should not be involved in the investigation, but Minister Xing had originally wanted him because of his ability to handle cases. The scribe position was just a cover. The Minister of Justice was surnamed Xing, and his name was Shuwen. This name did not sound like someone who could be a minister, but Xing Shuwen had done it. Xing Shuwen was one of the few ministers of the 6 ministries who had come from a humble background. At the beginning, he had suffered a lot before finally entering the Ministry of Justice. Because he did not have the support of his family, it was much more difficult for him to rise up the ranks than for those nobles and officials. He had been sent out twice. The first time was because he had offended someone, and the second time was because he had offended someone he should not have offended. But perhaps his life was really tough, for he had managed to survive. His character was upright, and his family style was also upright. He met the emperor's standards for using people. Of course, the prerequisite was that he could be noticed by the emperor. Speaking of which, it was actually a coincidence. The second time I was sent out was in a small county near Fengdu Mountain. I handled a case, and the victim was someone from the princess's estate, Minister Xing said to Xiao Hong in the carriage. Xiao Hong did not know about this. Before he left the capital, he had not thought that he would enter the 6 ministries, so he had not paid special attention to the movements of the 6 ministries. Princess Xinyang had monitored the movements of the court, so he had occasionally heard of some officials' weakness. For example, the account book of the imperial colleges saw accepting bribes. But it was clear that Minister of Justice was not in the list of weaknesses. He was an honest and upright official. As the carriage bumped along the rugged path, the two of them couldn't help but sway a little. Minister Xing swayed as he continued. To be honest, he was just an insignificant servant who was humiliated by a local squire. That squire had a bit of a relationship with the capital. Do you know what someone else would have done? Xiao Hong understood that he was not asking him a question. As expected, Minister Xing continued. Sometimes, the lives of the common people are worthless, and the lives of the servants are worthless as well. At that time, Princess Xinyang asked me, County Magistrate Xing, do you dare to investigate this case? Xiao Hong could almost imagine Princess Xinyang's expression at that time. I asked the princess, I've checked and something happened. Can the princess protect my family? The princess said, I can't. Your case isn't for me to investigate. That's your duty. You can choose to be a good official or a corrupt official. You'll have to bear the consequences. Aya, so unreasonable. I thought. Actually, when he thought about it now, he still felt that the princess was too cold-hearted. She was a princess. Wasn't it easy for her to protect a few people? She's putting me on the fire and not giving my family a way out. But Lulang, the world is like this. From the day I chose to be an official, I sent my family's fate down an unpredictable path. No one forced me. It was all my own choice. The case spread to the capital. Did you know that the squire was related to the Duke Luo's family? I almost died, but the heavens didn't want me to die. His Majesty heard about this case and transferred me back to the capital. My life was saved. She helped you, Xiao Hong suddenly said. What? Minister Xing looked at Xiao Hong in confusion. Xiao Hong said, Princess Xinyang, she helped you. Minister Xing was stunned. Xiao Hong brushed his wide sleeves. Otherwise, why would His Majesty hear about your case and suddenly transfer you back to the capital? There are so many murder cases in the world. This? Minister Xing couldn't accept such a huge shock. To be honest, it wasn't that he hadn't thought of this possibility. However, he had seen Princess Xinyang several times after the incident, and she didn't want him to thank her at all. In fact, she didn't even talk to him. How could she do a good deed without leaving a name? What did Princess Xinyang want? Because he was a good official? Because of his face? It was rumored that Princess Xinyang had many handsome men. Minister Xing touched his coarse face. Speaking of which, he was indeed the most handsome man in their county town once upon a time. Sir, we're here. The driver stopped the carriage. Minister Xing had said all this to Xiao Hong in the carriage because he sensed that this matter wasn't simple. The power behind it might be beyond their imagination. He was worried that Xiao Hong wouldn't dare to investigate further, so he wanted to use his own deeds to influence Xiao Hong and make him determined to be a good official who didn't fear power. Even if he didn't have anyone to protect him, he would definitely be able to soar to a high position. However, it seemed that he had failed. Cough, cough. Minister Xing cleared his throat. Let's go. This was the residence of the third witness they had found. Unfortunately, they didn't find anything. The witness hadn't returned home for the past few days. Assistant Minister Li's case could be said to be both simple and complicated. Assistant Minister Li had left the capital to visit his concubine and concubine son. Along the way, he had encountered a group of robbers. Assistant Minister Lee's accompanying bodyguards had promptly chased the robbers away. 2 of the robbers had seriously resisted and injured Assistant Minister Lee. The bodyguards had no choice but to kill them. However, who would have thought that when they were sent to the local yamen, one of the victims turned out to be a good citizen. The family of the good citizen came to the door and said that Assistant Minister Lee had killed their son. The identities of the rest of the robbers were also ascertained. Their eyewitnesses at the time were not at home. Based on Minister Shing's many years of experience in handling cases, this was a premeditated framing. The goal wasn't Assistant Minister Lee, but the case in his hands. Xiao Hung was a trustworthy person. Minister Shing didn't beat around the bush in front of him. The Xian Lu House case is of great importance. The capital government and the Ministry of Justice are investigating this case. Xiao Hung nodded and said, "Then why are the people from the capital government fine?" Minister Shing thoughtfully said, "There's only one possibility. The capital government had already been bribed." Xiao Hung also guessed this possibility. He sternly said, "If Assistant Minister Lee continues to investigate, there will be danger. It's your danger, Darren." Assistant Minister Lee was only following orders. The decision was in Minister Shing's hands. Therefore, the other party was actually targeting Minister Shing. The above was a guess based on the clues they currently had. Whether this was the case or not still needed to be confirmed later. Since they couldn't find a witness, Minister Shing took Xiao Hung to the carriage to return to the capital. The carriage hadn't gone far when an arrow shot into their carriage and nailed itself to the wall of the carriage between Xiao Hung and Minister Shing. Because the force was too great, the arrow had already pierced into the wall. The tail of the arrow was still shaking violently. It could be seen that if this arrow had shot into either of them, it would have killed them instantly. Minister Shing's eyes turned cold. Assassinate an official of the imperial court? Fortunately, I was already prepared. After he finished speaking, he took out a bone whistle and blew it forcefully. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3 rings passed. The expert who should have appeared didn't appear. Minister Shing was stunned. What's going on? This official spent a lot of money to buy an expert from the Jianghu. He's gone. Xiao Hung lightly said. It can't be? Minister Shing's eyes widened. Another arrow shot in. This time, it hit Minister Shing's crotch. Minister Shing only felt that his little minister was a bit cold. Get out of the carriage, Xiao Hung said. Minister Shing lifted the curtain and grabbed Xiao Hung's hand before jumping out of the carriage with him. Just as the 2 of them fell to the ground, a whole row of arrows covered the sky and covered the earth, and shot the carriage into a sieve. Minister Shing held his breath. If he and Xiao Lulang hadn't jumped out of the carriage in time, they would have become sieves by now. Too hateful. Who did this? Don't let this official find out. Otherwise, this official will definitely find out who did this. Whoosh. Another arrow was shot, and it almost hit Minister Shing's butt. Minister Shing suddenly jumped, grabbed Xiao Hung's hand, and ran. At first, Xiao Hung thought that the group of people came for Minister Shing. However, when they entered a forest and Minister Shing fell down the hill, the group of people didn't chase after Minister Shing. Instead, they attacked Xiao Hung. Xiao Hung finally understood that shooting Minister Shing was a mistake. Their target was him from the start. They didn't want to use Assistant Minister Lee's case to warn Minister Shing to stop. They wanted to use Minister Shing to take him out of the capital to investigate the case and kill him on the way. What a good plan. It seemed that Mo Qianxua's case was a trap from the start. Xiao Hung looked at the 5 men in black approaching him and asked coldly, "Who is your master?" The leader of the men in black said coldly, "You're going to die anyway. What's the use of knowing our master?" Xiao Hung said calmly, "You have to let me know before I die." The leader of the men in black sneered. "Fine, I'll tell you. The person who wants to kill you is our young master." Xiao Hung looked at him coldly. "Who is your young master?" Digression. Third watch, it slipped out again. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, Please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more fully. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhpqg.com/89642_8964286/10897525. HTML Genius memorized this website's address. www.zhpqg.com Bikuga mobile reading website. zhpqg.com. Chapter 540. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Big brother, don't talk nonsense with him. He's going to die anyway. What's the point of knowing so much? That's true. This guy doesn't deserve to know young master's name. The leader of the black-clothed men smiled and said to the black-clothed men beside him, "Kill this brat. Do it cleanly." "Big brother, don't worry. We know what to do. This brat doesn't know martial arts. We have the final say on how to kill him." Several people roared with laughter as they disdainfully pressed toward Xiao Hung. In front of Xiao Hung were the black-clothed men, and behind him was a huge slope. He had two choices. One was to be killed by them, and the other was to jump down the slope and die. Jump. One of the black-clothed men smiled provocatively. This height was nothing to martial artists, but it was a death sentence for a Hanlin official. They didn't believe that Xiao Hung would jump. In fact, Xiao Hung didn't jump. The few of them sneered as they approached Xiao Hung. When they were about 10 steps away, Xiao Hung suddenly fished out something from his money pouch and threw it at the few people's feet. They thought it was a hidden weapon and hurriedly took a step back. Unfortunately, it was useless to take a step back. The black thing exploded after it landed on the ground. Several people were blasted into a sorry state. The leader of the black-clothed men was startled. When he reacted and was about to attack Xiao Hung was one step faster and took out the remaining black fire pearls. Not good. Bang. He didn't have time to escape and was knocked out by a series of black fire pearls. Gu Jiao mixed a small amount of knockout drug into Xiao Hang's black fire pearls. The power of the explosion was not as strong as the pure black fire pearls, but it could quickly knock out the opponent. After knocking out the group of people, Xiao Hung quickly left and went down the small path to find Xing Shangshu. Minister Xing had just fallen down the hill. The place where he fell was not so high. If he was lucky, he would not die. When Xiao Hung found him, his arm was dislocated, but he could still walk. Xiao Hung helped him up, looked around, found a direction, and said, "Let's go." Minister Xing covered his dislocated arm and cursed in pain. "What kind of people are they?" "I'm not sure," Xiao Hung said. Xing Shangshu said angrily, Good. How dare he set his sights on this official? When we return to the capital, this official will investigate his background." His courage was commendable. Minister Xing said earnestly, "Lulang, don't be scared. As officials of the imperial court, how can we not encounter any problems? Don't back out just because of this little disturbance." Xiao Hung supported him and accurately identified the direction of the capital. Yes, he won't. What was this little disturbance? What's more, they were targeting him. It had nothing to do with him being an official of the imperial court. They had set up such a situation to deal with him. From the beginning of the murder case at Immortal Music House, this game had started. All of them were chess pieces on the chessboard. He just didn't know who the young master was, and what relationship did he have with Immortal Music House. Xiao Hung said, "Darren, after returning to the capital, I want to go to Immortal Music House again." "Okay, I'll listen to you. I also feel that there's something wrong with this Immortal Music House." Minister Xing was so angry that he cursed. Regarding the background of Immortal Music House, the people in the capital had many guesses. Unfortunately, no one had gotten a handle on Immortal Music House. It was not good to close it down or destroy it. Moreover, so what if they destroyed Immortal Music House? Was the main point Immortal Music House? It was the people behind Immortal Music House. Minister Xing had a toothache. After the two walked for a while, Minister Xing suddenly asked, "That's right, I seem to have heard a strange sound. Are you okay?" After Minister Xing fell down, he was dizzy for a while. In addition, he was far away, so he couldn't hear clearly. He didn't know if he had misheard or what happened. "I'm fine." Xiao Hung didn't mention the gunpowder. Only Yen country had gunpowder. God knows how Gu Jiao had it. It was better to have less trouble. Since Minister Xing wasn't sure, then he must have misheard. "That's right. What about that group of people?" Minister Xing asked again. Xiao Hung said, "We've shaken them off for the time being, but they may catch up in a while. We have to leave as soon as possible." But where is this?" Minister Xing was completely lost. Xiao Hung pointed to the front and said, "Go east for another li, and you'll reach Xiao He village. After passing through the village, there'll be a relay station. We'll hire a carriage there." "Oh." Minister Xing nodded blankly. He vaguely felt that something was wrong, but he couldn't figure out what it was. That group of people still caught up with them, but Xiao Hung was too familiar with the terrain around the capital. He was able to shake them off no matter what. After the carriage passed through the city gates, Minister Xing suddenly realized something. Aren't you from Yizhou? How come you're more familiar with the capital than me?" Those who didn't know would think that you grew up in the capital. That group of people didn't seem to want to make a move in the capital. After entering the capital, the two's journey was much smoother. They didn't have to hide anymore and walked faster. Minister Xing was injured, so Xiao Hung sent him to the Miracle Hall. "Lu Lang is here." The second master smiled and greeted him. "You're here to look for Xiao Gu, right? She's treating a patient. She'll be fine in a while." Xiao Hung nodded and turned to introduce him to the second master. "This is Lord Xing. His arm is injured. I'll have to trouble you to find a doctor to treat him." Minister Xing was wearing an official's robe. Although the second master didn't recognize which yamen he was from, he could tell that he was a third-rank official. The second master hurriedly cupped his hands. "My apologies, my lord. Please come this way. I'll go get a doctor for you." The second master invited Minister Xing to a room upstairs. Xiao Hung went to Gu Jiao's courtyard. Xiao Hung knew that there was a female patient living in the courtyard. He never interfered with Gu Jiao's medical practice, but he didn't know that the patient had moved into Gu Jiao's room. He pushed the door open and entered. He was caught off guard and bumped into the other party. After Gu Jiao left, Mo Chinchua tried to sneak off the bed. She had just walked to the table when Xiao Hung came in. Xiao Hung saw her, and she saw Xiao Hung. She was wearing Gu Jiao's clothes. She was dressed neatly, without any disrespect or inconvenience. However, she still caught him off guard. Her walking posture was different from normal people. Xiao Hung quickly realized that she was a patient. He quickly looked away, nodded slightly, and turned to leave. At that moment, Mo Chenchua called out to him. "Stop." Xiao Hung paused. He hesitated and looked at Mo Chenchua. In all fairness, Mo Chenchua was beautiful. It was hard to find a woman in the capital who was more beautiful than her. Even the second master and the doctors in the clinic were shocked speechless when they saw Mo Chenchua's clean face for the first time. Xiao Hung was very calm. There was no surprise or admiration in his eyes. It was purely the look of someone looking at a stranger. It was no different from looking at a commoner on the street. Mo Chenchua frowned. "Is this your reaction when you see me?" Xiao Hung was confused. What was wrong with his reaction? What kind of reaction did she think he would have when he saw her? Xiao Hung looked at Mo Chenchua, puzzled. Mo Chenchua endured the pain of her wound and moved step by step toward Xiao Hung. When she was 3 steps away from Xiao Hung, he unconsciously took a step back. It was obvious that he wanted to avoid suspicion. Mo Chenchua frowned even more. What's wrong with you? If the first sentence made Xiao Hung confused, the second sentence made Xiao Hung realize that something was wrong. She didn't sound like a stranger to him. You recognize me? Xiao Hung looked at her suspiciously. Mo Chenchua pointed at his right eye. Do you think I won't recognize you just because you don't have that mole? Although your appearance has changed a little from a few years ago, I can still recognize you. Xiao Hung frowned slightly. He did have a mole under his right eye. Had she really seen him before? Mo Chenchua saw that he was silent and her face darkened. Don't tell me you don't remember me? Xiao Hung didn't say anything. Mo Chenchua's almond eyes widened. You really don't remember? I was wondering, when I saw you near the Hanlon Academy, I asked my maid to look for you, but you didn't pay any attention to her. Near the Hanlon Academy. Maid Xiao Hung remembered. There was indeed such a thing. It was even seen by Cin Xiu, who spread rumors in the Hanlon Academy that he had an affair with a brothel girl. Xiao Hung stared at her. You were the one that day? Mo Chenchua nodded. Yes, it was me. I purposely dropped a token on the ground. Who knew that you didn't pick it up, but it was picked up by a random person. After that, that person dared to go to the Immortal Music House to look for me. Xiao Hang's eyes flickered. Immortal Music House. Cin Xiu had indeed met with an accident near the Immortal Music House. At that time, the result of the investigation was that Cin Xiu was bold and reckless. He coveted the girls in the Immortal Music House, but he didn't have a token to enter. So he tried to sneak in by climbing over the wall, but was killed by the guards. So he wasn't killed by a thief, but by the woman in front of him. Mo Chenchua didn't realize what kind of impact her words had brought to the room. She said calmly, Didn't I tell you before that if I saw you again, I would tell you who I was? Xiao Hung looked at her, his eyes cold and probing. Is that so? Then who are you? Mo Chenchua raised her eyebrows and smiled. I am the top courtesan of the Immortal Music House, Mo Chenchua. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896/1089600671. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 541. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with hidden meanings that can't be found online are all available here. The dead courtesan of Immortal Music House actually appeared in front of his eyes. Was there anything more ridiculous than this? If she was Mo Chenchua, then what was up with the female corpse lying in the amen? Also, Xiao Hung was very sure that he had never seen Mo Chenchua before. Then who did Mo Chenchua mistake him for? In an instant, countless doubts flashed through Xiao Hang's mind. A string in his heart tightened. He felt that he seemed to have inadvertently approached a certain truth. When Xiao Hung didn't want others to see his emotions, no one could break through. He instantly collected his thoughts and entered the state of knowing Mo Chenchua. But I heard that the courtesan of Immortal Music House is dead. It's just a scapegoat, Mo Chenchua said carelessly. This was supposed to be a secret, but Mo Chenchua didn't seem to have any fear in front of him. Xiao Hung looked at her calmly. It hurts. Help me. Mo Chenchua gasped and reached out her hand. Xiao Hung didn't move. But Mo Chenchua thought of something and quickly pulled her hand back. I'll do it myself. She endured the pain and moved to a stool by the table. She sat down and said to Xiao Hong, "All right. Why are you here? Last time I saw you, weren't you an official of the Hanlin Academy? You're not wearing the uniform of the Hanlin Academy today." Xiao Hong said, "I'm on duty at the Ministry of Justice today." Mo Qianxue snorted. "Ministry of Justice?" Xiao Hong said calmly, "I'm investigating your case today. If I knew that you faked your death, I wouldn't have bothered." Mo Qianxue waved her hand. "Just investigate casually, don't be too serious. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll get into trouble." Xiao Hong seemed to ask casually, "What kind of trouble will I get into?" Mo Qianxue sighed. This is a long story. Even I don't know much about it. I don't know how to explain it to you." Xiao Hong's eyes moved. "Is it the young master behind you?" Mo Qianxue looked at him in shock. "You know our young master?" Xiao Hong said calmly, "Today, the Minister of Justice and I went to investigate a case. On the way, we encountered a group of people who wanted to kill us. That group of people accidentally mentioned something about the young master." Xiao Hong didn't lie, but he didn't tell the whole truth. For example, those people were actually targeting him, and it had nothing to do with him investigating the case. Xiao Hong was testing Mo Qianxue. He wanted to know what role she played in this case, and how much she knew. "Are you hurt?" This was Mo Qianxue's reaction. Xiao Hong's eyelashes drooped as he faintly said, "I'm fine. Minister Xing suffered some minor injuries." This sentence easily made people think that the group of people were targeting Minister Xing. Mo Qianxue pursed her lips and said, "It must be because you investigated the case too closely. They wanted to give you a warning. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come back alive. I know the young master's methods." It seemed that Mo Qianxue didn't know that those people actually wanted his life. In Mo Qianxue's eyes, why did her young master cause a murder case? Xiao Hong temporarily suppressed the urge to ask who the young master was. He poured a cup of tea for Mo Qianxue and asked, "Why did you fake your death?" "To kill someone." Mo Qianxue's mood fell. Xiao Hong was about to put the teapot back when his eyelashes trembled. He took the teapot back and poured himself a cup of tea. "Kill who?" Mo Qianxue said in a low voice, "The owner of this clinic." Xiao Hong clenched his fist and spilled 2 drops of tea on the table. He covered it with the teacup and said in a calm voice, "You deliberately got injured to get close to her." "Yes." Mo Qianxue nodded gloomily. Xiao Hong said indifferently, "You're injured so badly. Aren't you afraid of dying?" Mo Qianxue thought that Xiao Hong guessed her injury from the gauze on her body. She didn't think that Xiao Hong already knew that she almost died that night. She said, "If I wasn't injured so badly, how could I win her trust?" Xiao Hong put the teapot back and suppressed the murderous aura that wanted to kill Mo Qianxue on the spot. He asked indifferently, "You've already won her trust. Why haven't you made a move yet?" Mo Qianxue was silent. "Do you still want to make a move?" Xiao Hong asked. "I don't know," Mo Qianxue said. Xiao Hong took a sip of tea and said, "You said that your young master's methods are impressive. Aren't you afraid that you'll be punished by him if you don't listen to him?" Mo Qianxue sighed incomparably. "Forget it. Let's not talk about me. Let's talk about you. What's your current identity?" "Hanlin, Academy Attendant, Ministry of Justice Secretary." "What's your name?" "Xiao Lulang." "Oh." Mo Qianxue responded. She obviously felt that this name wasn't very good. "Then, have you done what you said you were going to do here?" Xiao Hong's expression didn't change as he said, "I'm still doing it." "What exactly is it?" Mo Qianxue asked nosily. Xiao Hong's eyelashes fluttered slightly. He said seriously, "I'll tell you when it's done." Mo Qianxue snorted. Boring. Xiao Hong could only drink tea to hide the fluctuations in his heart. Thinking of something, Mo Qianxue said, "Oh right, are you feeling better?" Xiao Hong's expression froze. If he wasn't sure that she had mistaken him for someone else, he would almost think that she was asking about his leg. "It's done," Xiao Hong said. Mo Qianxue said in surprise, "It can be cured? Then why did you choose to commit suicide?" Xiao Hong almost couldn't continue. "You believed me when I lied to you." Mo Qianxue nodded thoughtfully. I knew it. You didn't look like you were trying to commit suicide. From the lobby came a few shouts from the second boss. Mo Chinchua hurriedly said, "Hurry up and leave. The owner of this clinic will be back soon. It'll be bad if she finds out about you." Xiao Hung. "She's my wife, thank you." Mo Chinchua continued. "Also, you can't tell anyone that you know me. If word gets out and reaches our young master's ears, I'm afraid you'll be killed." Xiao Hung was thinking about how to bring the topic back to this mysterious young master. He didn't expect Mo Chinchua to bring it up herself. He didn't ask before because he felt that it was too sudden and suspicious. Now, he could push the boat with the current. Xiao Hung looked at her with a trace of curiosity. "You keep mentioning your young master. I'm very curious. Who is he?" A trace of fear flashed through Mo Chinchua's eyes. "He's someone we can't afford to offend in Zhao country." "Let's hear it," Xiao Hung said in an unconvinced tone. Mo Chinchua thought for a while and waved her hand. "Forget it. It's not good for you to know too much." Xiao Hung said seriously, "If you don't tell me who he is, how will I know how powerful he is? Is he worth the risk of being expelled from the Ministry of Justice to dissuade the Minister of Justice from suppressing this case?" Mo Chinchua wanted to say something, but stopped. She hesitated for a while. Suddenly, she dipped her finger into the teacup and slowly wrote 3 words on the table. "This is the young master's name," she said. Xiao Heng's gaze fell on the name that was not unfamiliar, and his eyes were cold. The Imperial College hadn't started yet. Little Jing Kong had a lot of free time every day. The number of times he went out for a chicken walk had also increased. He went out once in the morning and again in the afternoon. When he brought 7 chickens, an eagle, and a dog back to the house, he saw his bad brother-in-law standing motionlessly at the door. He stuck his head out and looked into the house. Jiao Jiao wasn't there. In a second, he turned into a street bully in Qingshui Alley. He ordered arrogantly, "What are you doing?" Xiao Hung was both angry and amused. He patted his little mushroom head and said, "Do you want to enter the palace?" Little Jing Kong, "I don't want to." Xiao Hung, "No, you want to." Then little Jing Kong was taken away with a confused look on his face. Little Jing Kong, who was once again a tool, was dragged into the carriage by his bad brother-in-law. They arrived at the palace with great resentment. The guards stopped the carriage. Xiao Hung lifted the curtain and lifted little Jing Kong up. The guards saw a familiar expressionless face and smiled. "So it's the young master of Jing Kong. Sorry for the disrespect." The guards let him go. Sure enough, the little monk's face was more useful than the token. The carriage stopped after entering the palace. Xiao Hung held little Jing Kong's hand and walked forward. Little Jing Kong once again returned to the state of being abducted by the human merchant. He drooped his little head and walked unwillingly like a soulless puppet. However, when he passed by the Imperial Garden and saw beautiful flowers, he quickly picked one. Xiao Hung turned around. He quickly hid the flower behind him and continued to walk forward with his head lowered. Xiao Hung wanted to laugh. "Do you know whose flower you picked?" Little Jing Kong said, "I didn't pick the flower." Oh, he still knew that he was being tricked. Xiao Hung said, "That's the flower planted by Princess Xinyang. It's poisonous." Little Jing Kong threw the flower away. Xiao Hung almost laughed out loud. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel is updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. There are all kinds of novels that can't be found online. https://www.zhpqg.com/8964-2_8956/1089599046. HTML Genius memorized the website address www.zhpqg.com. Bikuga mobile reading website zhpqg.com. Chapter 542. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel was updated faster. Millions of novels were free to read. There were all kinds of novels that couldn't be found on the internet. Little Jing Kong was still too inexperienced to fight with his bad brother-in-law. Xiao Hung was just teasing him. It would be a waste to throw it away since he had already picked it. Xiao Hung picked up the flower and handed it to him. "Here, I'm just teasing you. It's not poisonous." Little Jing Kong looked at the little flower suspiciously and didn't reach out to take it. His bad brother-in-law had no credibility. Little Jing Kong didn't believe what he said. Thus, Xiao Hung held the flowers for him to prevent this brat from harming other flowers. Little Jing Kong observed his bad brother-in-law all the way. He looked at his hand holding the flower and then at his face. "Why do you keep looking at me?" Xiao Hung asked. "I want to see if your glabella is black," Little Jing Kong said honestly. Xiao Hung was speechless. Little Jing Kong didn't take the flower until they entered Rinshou Palace and found that his bad brother-in-law still didn't show any signs of being poisoned. Xiao Hung was now an official in the Hanlin Academy and also worked in the Ministry of Justice. There were many people watching him, so he couldn't go in and out of Rinshou Palace as willfully as before. He could only use the excuse of sending Little Jing Kong to avoid giving others a hard time. Little Jing Kong said that he didn't want to go to the palace, but he was quite happy when he went in. "Hello, Sister Fei Cui. Hello, Sister Jinju." He greeted the little maids in Rinshou Palace one by one and then went to find his grand aunt. Empress Dowager Zhuang's condition wasn't good. Maybe she was too worried about Ning En and her son. She looked a little haggard, especially after Huang Fu Xian left. Empress Dowager Zhuang would be in a daze for a long time. That afternoon, Huang Fu Xian had just come over and had something to eat before leaving. Empress Dowager Zhuang sat by the window and looked at the scenery in the courtyard. Suddenly, a small round head grew out from under the windowsill. "Grand Aunt." Empress Dowager Zhuang's eyelids twitched. "Why is it you again?" Little Jing Kong stood on his tiptoes and handed Hua Hua in from outside the window. "This beautiful Hua Hua is for my beautiful great aunt." Empress Dowager Zhuang's mouth twitched. Even if you were to change the wording, you wouldn't be so perfunctory. Empress Dowager Zhuang calmly took the peony. "You went to ruin Princess Xinyang's flowers again?" Little Jing Kong put his hands behind his back and said seriously, "I got it from my brother-in-law." He wasn't lying. He had just taken it from his bad brother-in-law, even though he was the one who plucked it. How could Empress Dowager Zhuang not understand him? Empress Dowager Zhuang snorted. Looking at the delicate peony, she said, "Why are you suddenly so kind to send me flowers?" Little Jing Kong sighed. "I know. My bad brother-in-law said that this flower is poisonous, so I can't give it to Jiao Jiao." Empress Dowager Zhuang was speechless. After Xiao Hung entered Rinshou Palace, he didn't hurry to find Great Aunt. Instead, he went to see Eunuch Qin first. The Empress Dowager's condition. Eunuch Qin heard Xiao Hung asking about the Empress Dowager, so he didn't hide anything. "It's not good to tell the truth. Princess Ning and suffered so much in the frontier fortress for so many years. After she came back, she looked so pitiful. The most pitiful is young Master Xian. He suffered so much at such a young age. The more unreasonable he is, the more upset the Empress Dowager will be. After Huang Fu Xian moved into the palace, he caused a lot of trouble. On the first day, he bullied Qin Chu. Not long after, he scared the two little commandery princesses raised by noble consort Zhuang in the palace. As for not showing respect to the empress and the imperial concubines, it was a light punishment. The point was that as long as someone complained to His Majesty, he wouldn't admit it. How did a good child become like this? In Eunuch Qin's opinion, Huang Fu Zheng deserved to die 1,000 times over. This child scheming. Cough, cough. Realizing that he almost said something he shouldn't, Eunuch Qin decisively stopped. Xiao Hung pretended that he didn't hear the last sentence and said, "Then I'll go and see the Empress Dowager." Xiao Hung went to Empress Dowager Zhuang's study and patted little Jing Kong's shoulder. Go and play. I'll talk to Grand Aunt for a while. Oh, Grand Aunt, I'm leaving. Little Jing Kong waved his little hand and turned to leave. Xiao Hung stayed in the study to talk with Empress Dowager Zhuang, while little Jing Kong went to Qinquan Palace to find Qin Qiu. Because of the lesson last time, the two didn't go to Bixia Hall this time. Let's go and feed the fish, little Jing Kong said. There was a tay pond in the palace, and there were many koi fish in it. Each of them was fat and cute. Qin Qiu was not in high spirits. What's wrong? Are you unhappy? Little Jing Kong asked with concern. Qin Qiu sighed as he walked on the path full of flowers. My puppy is gone. Why is it gone? Little Jing Kong was confused. Qin Qiu said sadly, my mother said it ran around last time and caused me to run into Huangfu Xian. Huangfu Xian bullied me, so my mother won't let me keep it anymore. Little Jing Kong thought about his pets and said, actually, my chickens and birds also get into trouble. Didn't little Nine almost peck you last time? But Jiao Jiao didn't forbid him from keeping it. Jiao Jiao was great. Qin Qiu was so pitiful. He comforted Qin Qiu. If you like puppies, you can come to my house next time. I'll lend you little 8. I just want my dog, Qin Qiu said sullenly. Huh? Listen. Little Jing Kong suddenly pulled him to a stop. Listen to what? Qin Qiu asked strangely. Your dog. Little Jing Kong said crisply. Qin Qiu looked around. Where? I heard it. Little Jing Kong pointed. Over there. The two children ran in the direction pointed out by little Jing Kong. Behind a rockery, the two of them really saw Qin Qiu's dog. However, the scene was different from what they had imagined. Huangfu Xian was here too. Huangfu Xian sat alone in a cold wheelchair without any servant around him. His legs were covered with a thick blanket as usual, and Qin Qiu's dog was lying on the blanket. Its entire body was covered in blood. It was obvious that it had either been thrown to the ground or abused by someone. Huangfu Xian was choking it with one hand and forcing something into its mouth with the other. The puppy whimpered in pain, but Huangfu Xian didn't show any mercy. He forced the dog's mouth open. His expression was ferocious. At that moment, he was no longer a disabled young man, but a twisted devil. Qin Qiu had never seen such a terrifying person. He was so scared that he fell to the ground and even forgot to scream. Little Jing Kong was also shocked. He stared at the man and the dog in the wheelchair with his eyes wide open. Huangfu Xian sensed the movement from the side. He slowly turned his head, revealing a pair of malicious eyes. Ah! Qin Qiu's hair stood on end, and he finally screamed. Qin Qiu was so young that he couldn't bear such a terrifying shock. He trembled and almost crawled forward. Help! Help! Someone is killing the puppy. He ran away. Little Jing Kong didn't run away. Huangfu Xian's malicious eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. He asked sarcastically, Aren't you going to run, little thing? Little Jing Kong looked at him, and then looked at the dying puppy on his leg. He didn't know if he hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he turned around and ran away. Ha! Huangfu Xian sneered disdainfully. When it was time for court, the emperor called the cabinet ministers and military officials to the imperial study to discuss the rewards for the meritorious officials at the frontier fortress. Tang Yueshan was already the grand marshal of the world. He couldn't be promoted, so the emperor planned to give him a title. Gu Changqing, as the heir of Marquis Ding En, was ordered to reorganize the Gu army and go north to fight the enemy. His contributions couldn't go unnoticed. The emperor planned to promote him to a third-rank northern general. He was promoted 3 ranks from a 6th-rank military officer. He could be considered the fastest promoted general during the emperor's reign. Gu Chengfeng performed well in the Battle of Yuegu City, so the emperor decided to give him the position of military officer of the Yu cavalry. As for the other generals, the emperor also mentioned their rewards one by one. The ministers had no objections. Until now, the imperial study was harmonious. Then, the emperor began to reward Gu Jiao, and Ning and Gu Jiao still hadn't acknowledged her identity as the daughter of Marquis Ding, and so the emperor planned to reward her in the name of the owner of the Miracle Hands Hall. The emperor bestowed the plaque of the #1 divine doctor and conferred the title of Junju. The title was left to Han Lin Academy to decide. At this time, Su Sifu from the cabinet spoke up. Dr. Gu is only a medical woman. Even if she has performed meritorious deeds in saving the soldiers, she still can't bear the title of Junju, right? Su Sifu was one of Imperial Tutor Zhuang's people. Imperial Tutor Zhuang claimed to be ill and didn't come today. The emperor looked at Su Sifu with displeasure. Why can't she bear the title? Do you know how many people she saved? This official does not deny Dr. Gu's contributions. This official only feels that Your Majesty should give her other rewards. Your Majesty bestowing the plaque of the #1 divine doctor is already very generous. If you also give her the title of Junju, it would be inconsistent with the ancestral rules. Su Sifu cupped his hands and continued. Besides, compared to Dr. Gu, this official believes that another person should be rewarded more. The emperor lightly said, "Oh? Who are you referring to?" Su Sifu sternly said, "Princess Ning and Princess Ning unplaced righteousness above family and helped Second Master Gu save the old marquis. She also helped Gu Shizhi destroy the nest of the remnants of the previous dynasty. If it wasn't for Princess Ning and's wit and bravery, the Gu family's army commander might not have been able to leave the snowy mountains. Princess Ning and's contributions are great. This official proposes that Princess Ning and be conferred the title of Princess Protector. Zhao country's princess eldest was not a title that could be casually conferred. That was a princess with real power. Her position was the same as that of a marquis. The newest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated even faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels that can be found online are all available here. https://www.zhhbqg.com/89642_8964286/10893794. HTML Genius. 1 second. Remember this website address. www.zhhbqg.com. Biku Go Mobile Reading Website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 543. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. Princess Ning was very popular among the people. Her action of putting righteousness before family spread all the way from the frontier fortress to the capital. The people all praised her for her loyalty and patriotism. Moreover, she had a son who had lost his legs. People couldn't help but feel pity for her under the praise. Therefore, when the conversation in the imperial study spread, the people received a lot of praise. Of course, the praise came from Princess Ningen. They all said that she deserved to be the first princess of the Protector. Tang Yueshan heard the news in the barracks. His injury had healed, but he still needed to do rehabilitation every day. He was bored at home, so he came to the barracks to train with the soldiers. Today's Tiger Mountain Barracks was not the same as before. The Gu Clan army was no longer in the Tiger Mountain Barracks after being reorganized. They went to the nearby Wolf Mountain Barracks, while the soldiers of the Wolf Mountain Barracks were transferred here. Tang Yueshan's archers were also there. 500 of them came back from the frontier fortress after fighting in the war. They were trapped in Yi City with the guards of the imperial court. Tang Yueshan used a trick to lure them out of Yi City. On the way, they were chased by the Chun army. It was Gu Jiao who stopped the Chun army's pursuit by herself. If it was the duty of a doctor to heal the wounded and save the dying, then it was not her duty to risk her life for the soldiers. But she still did it without hesitation. They didn't forget how she risked her life for them, and how she worked hard to treat them. She even gave them the last chance to enter the city. Now that they suddenly heard that she was going to be conferred the title of princess, the soldiers were quite happy for her. Then they heard that Princess Ning was going to be the first princess of the Protector. The soldiers were a little confused, but they could accept it. After all, she was a princess of the imperial family. The emperor and the empress dowager wanted to spoil her. They just needed to watch. But someone asked, how did she become the protector of the Protector? A soldier told him the news he heard. Tang Yueshan's archers grew anxious. An archer asked, when did she work with second young Master Gu to save the old duke? It was clearly Dr. Gu and second young Master Gu who had rescued the old duke. On the way, they met the Grand Marshal and worked together with him to deal with the prince consort. After that, Dr. Gu and second young Master Gu brought the seriously injured old duke to Yuegu City, while the Grand Marshal went to Yi City. Save us. The soldier analyzed for him. The old marquis was locked up in the governor's manor. The governor's manor was heavily guarded and filled with experts. Without Princess Ning and holding back the prince consort and diverting their attention, how could that doctor and second young Master Gu succeed? The archer said angrily, why can't we succeed? You don't know how amazing Dr. Gu is. Back then, she alone scared off 5,000 Shin cavalrymen. The soldier waved his hand. Keep bragging. Do you think the Chun State's cavalry is made of paper? The archer was furious. You've never been there. How do you know I'm just bluffing? The soldier chuckled. Is there a need to go? Just think about it, and you know it's impossible. Even if that Dr. Gu is extremely capable, it can't be as exaggerated as you say, right? In fact, everyone only had a little doubt about whether Princess Ning was qualified to be conferred the title of First Princess Protector. They had no right to comment on it. Now that the conflict had arisen, it immediately aroused everyone's desire to win. Just like that, the two sides began to argue. As they argued, they began to fight. At first, it was just two people fighting, but as they fought, it became two rows of people fighting. One row was made up of archers who had been to the frontier fortress, while the other row was made up of soldiers who had just come from the Wolf Mountain barracks. The commotion alerted Tang Yueshan, who also found out about Princess Ning and's conferment. Tang Yueshan was the Grand Marshal. At his current height, he naturally saw the problem from a different perspective than the soldiers below. He knew very well why things would change when they reached the capital. It was because this was the officialdom. It didn't matter whether Princess Ning had really made those contributions. She was the favorite of the Emperor and Empress Dowager Zhuang, so there would be people rushing to flatter her. Wasn't that what the civil officials were best at? They talked as if they knew more about all the things that had happened in the war than the soldiers on the battlefield. Compared with a little female doctor, it was obvious that the spirit of sacrifice and national integrity of a princess was more convincing. But then again, if Tang Yueshan hadn't experienced it himself, he wouldn't have believed that Gu Jiao had risked her life like that. How could anyone fight to that extent? She fought on the city tower for an entire night with her own strength, just to keep the flag of the Zhao kingdom from falling, just to protect the border fortress from being broken. Just this alone made Tang Yueshan's chest surge when he thought of it. This didn't mean that the other soldiers didn't contribute, or that whoever contributed more or less had contributed less. Every soldier had done a good job. But the claims about Princess Ning and's contributions were indeed exaggerated. Tang Yueshan wouldn't be so surprised if Gu Chongqing had destroyed the nest of the remnants of the previous dynasty. Forget it, he was an old general. This kind of thing was commonplace. The merits of the subordinates were meant to be taken by the superiors. Besides, Gu Jiao wasn't anyone to him. He wouldn't admit that she was a henchman. He wasn't angry. He didn't care. He wouldn't stand up for her. In the afternoon, Tang Yueshan received a summons from the emperor, ordering him to go to the palace immediately. Tang Yueshan guessed that the emperor wanted to confer the title of Princess Ningen. He was the grand marshal of all the troops and an important minister in the war at the frontier fortress. If he came forward to ask for the title of Princess Ningen, he believed that the title of Protector Princess would be more justified. But the emperor also asked him to bring his Tang Bao. He couldn't figure out what the emperor wanted to do. He followed the eunuch to the palace and found that the emperor didn't summon him to the imperial study, but to a meadow near the imperial garden. Princess Ning was there. Your Majesty, Princess Ning, when he carried the Tang Bao on his back and saluted. There were tables and chairs in the meadow. The emperor and Princess Ning had already sat down. The emperor pointed to a chair and said to Tang Yueshan, "Minister Tang, sit down." Tang Yueshan sat down in confusion. About 5 feet in front of him, Eunuch Wei and a few guards set up 10 targets. Did the emperor want to see him shoot? "How is Minister Tang's injury?" the emperor asked in an amiable manner. Tang Yueshan belatedly realized that the emperor had changed his title to minister. She was really overwhelmed by this favor. A few months ago, he was still a thorn in the emperor's side. He said respectfully, "I'm fine. Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty." What was the emperor trying to do? Just then, Eunuch Wei strode over. He greeted Tang Yueshan with a smile. "Lord Tang, you're here." Eunuch Wei. Tang Yueshan saluted back. Eunuch Wei smiled and turned to the emperor and Princess Ning. "And Your Majesty, Your Highness, the targets are ready." "Bring the bow," the emperor said. "Yes." Eunuch Wei walked to the side, took a heavy bow from a guard, and personally handed it to Princess Ning. Tang Yueshan raised his eyebrows. Princess Ning grabbed the bow without saying a word. The guard immediately handed her a quiver. She took out an arrow, knocked it on the bow, took aim, and shot. She hit the bullseye. Tang Yueshan was shocked. "Good archery, Your Highness." Eunuch Wei praised with a smile. The emperor looked at Princess Ning lovingly. "You haven't lost your archery skills. In fact, you've improved a little." Tang Yueshan remembered that Princess Ning had learned archery from him years ago. Otherwise, why would Empress Dowager Zhuang want to marry Princess Ning to him? It was just his father's voice that broke the silence. He went to tell the Empress Dowager that he and Princess Ning seemed to be in love with each other. To be honest, he didn't have that kind of feeling for Princess Ningen. He liked mature and gentle women, not a childish girl like Ningen Wait. The emperor suddenly called him here and made him watch Princess Ning shoot an arrow. Could it be that the emperor wanted to marry Princess Ning to him again? He didn't want to marry just any married woman. The emperor smiled and asked, "Minister Tang, what do you think of Ning An's archery skills?" It was good enough that an ordinary person could shoot like this. Tang Yueshan wanted to say that, but instead he said, "She's terrible." The emperor was stunned. So was Princess Ningen. She didn't expect Tang Yueshan to be so sharp-tongued. Tang Yueshan broke out in cold sweat. What did he just say? Was it because he had been bickering with Gu Chengfeng in the ward for too long that he didn't know how to control his mouth? Is it terrible? Princess Ning asked awkwardly. At this distance, it was good enough for a woman to hit the edge of the bullseye. Unexpectedly, Tang Yueshan's head heated up and he vented the anger he had been holding in all the way. "Don't you know whether it's terrible or not? Even a blind man can shoot better than you. Fortunately, you don't have to go to war. Otherwise, you'll kill your own people before the enemy dies. And you call yourself the Princess Protector? Look at you. Do you deserve it? Have you ever killed an enemy or shed blood? Have you ever saved a person or cured a plague? Just because you're a princess, you think you can take all the credit? Bah, you're nothing." Digression, Little Fong Fong. 666. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. You can find all the novels you can't find online. https://www ZHHBQG. com/89642_896422826 /1089370087. HTML Genius memorized this site's address in 1 second. www.zhhbqg.com Beakage mobile reading website. zhhbqg.com. Chapter 544. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with deep content that can't be found online are available here. His words were simply deadly. What was worse was that Tang Yueshan actually said the last 2 sentences. The entire field fell silent. The sparrows in the forest stopped moving. Tang Yueshan finally realized what he had said. He felt as if a few crows were flying over his head. Tang Yueshan had never been so sharp-tongued. It wasn't that he was big-hearted or that he was a general. It was just that there weren't many generals who were sharp-tongued. He wouldn't lose a fight, and he couldn't win an argument. However, ever since he became Gu Qingfeng's roommate, he had been getting scolded from time to time. After getting scolded so many times, he had gotten used to it. Just now, he couldn't hold back and blurted out whatever was on his mind. It was all Gu Qingfeng's fault. He would never admit that he was standing up for Gu Jiao. Impossible. Impossible. The atmosphere was so awkward that one could dig out a house with one's toe. Eunuch Wei looked at Princess Ning, and then at His Majesty. Both of them looked terrible. It's over. Marshal Tang, you're finished. You could have offended anyone, but you had to offend Princess Ning, Don't you know that Princess Ning is His Majesty's favorite? Tang Yueshan wanted to cry, but had no tears. He was telling the truth, but was it too late to regret? What's going on? A cold voice came from behind them. Eunuch Wei turned around in surprise. He bowed to the newcomer and said, Miss Gu, why are you in the palace today? I'm here to see my grandaunt, said Gu Jiao. She had been so busy taking care of Mo Qianxue that she hadn't been in the palace to see how her grandaunt was doing. She was passing by the imperial garden when she heard the generals roar. She came to see what was going on. The emperor glared at Tang Yueshan coldly. He suppressed the urge to drag him away and beat him to death. He said gently to Gu Jiao, Jiao Jiao, Your Majesty, Princess Ning, and Grand Marshal Tang. Gu Jiao greeted them one by one. Her tone wasn't very enthusiastic, nor was it as polite as Xiao Heng's deliberate attitude after he became an official. It was just cold and cheerless, sounding as if she didn't care. If it was anyone else who said this, the emperor would be angry. But Gu Jiao's personality was like this, so the emperor didn't think she was being rude to him and Princess Ning. Are you shooting arrows? Gu Jiao saw a target not far away. Judging from the distance, it was about 50 steps away. Eunuch Wei smiled and said, Yes, Miss Gu. Do you know how to shoot an arrow? Gu Jiao thought for a moment. Yes, I know a little, but I'm not very good at it. Eunuch Wei was a shrewd person. He quickly asked with a smile, Miss Gu, do you want to try it? Okay. Gu Jiao nodded. Eunuch Wei glanced at Princess Ning awkwardly. He had only prepared one bow. Princess Ning handed the bow in her hand to Eunuch Wei. Thank you, Princess. Eunuch Wei reached out with both hands and respectfully handed the bow to Gu Jiao. Gu Jiao was holding the bow in her right hand and an arrow in her left hand. This made Eunuch Wei and the emperor both look askance. Gu Jiao didn't look like a left-handed person, so how could she use her left hand to draw the bow? Could it be that she wasn't very good at it? So she didn't know which hand to use to draw the bow? Gu Jiao, who wasn't very good at it, took 3 arrows from the guard's quiver, knocked them on the bowstring, took aim, and shot. 3 arrows were shot at the same time. Each arrow hit the center of the target and went through the center, directly piercing through the bull's eye. The emperor was so shocked that he held onto the armrest of his chair and sat up straight. This is called not very good at it. Yes. Gu Jiao nodded and said seriously, The Tang family's archers can shoot 4 arrows at the same time, and each arrow can hit a willow tree from 100 paces away. This bullseye is so big and only 50 paces away. A Tang family archer can hit it with his eyes closed. But she still had to open her eyes. If it were 100 paces away, she wouldn't be able to hit it with such accuracy even with her eyes open. The emperor looked at the target that had been shot through by Gu Jiao, and then looked at Princess Ning's arrow that had only hit the edge of the bullseye. In a trance, he felt that Tang Yueshan's words, "Even a blind man can shoot better than you," were not offensive words, but an incomparably cruel truth. "Is it really that good?" The emperor asked Tang Yueshan seriously. I wouldn't dare. Although Tang Yueshan said that he didn't dare, he drew his Tang bow, knocked 4 arrows, and shot them out. He didn't seem to have hit anything. However, when Eunuch Wei brought the guards to retrieve the arrows he had shot, they found that each arrow had hit the root of a flower and nailed it firmly to the branch. This was much more difficult than shooting a willow tree from 100 paces away. At least the leaves of the willow tree were not so thin. Eunuch Wei took the flowers back. The emperor was completely speechless. Princess Ning and said, "Miss Gu and Marshal Tang look very similar when it comes to drawing a bow. Did Miss Gu learn archery from Marshal Tang?" No. Gu Jiao and Tang Yueshan denied it in unison. In the next second, the emperor and the others saw the two of them take out handkerchiefs to wipe the bows in their hands. Their movements were so synchronized that they even habitually flicked the handkerchiefs on the bowstrings. The emperor was speechless. Everyone was speechless. The emperor was so angry at Tang Yueshan that he almost forgot about the important matter. He only remembered it now when he saw him wiping the bow. The emperor said, "Princess Ning admires Minister Tang's archery very much. If Minister Tang has the time, please give Princess Ning some pointers." Generally speaking, the emperor was a benevolent ruler. This benevolence was a double-edged sword. It allowed him to be loyal to those around him, but it also allowed him to be merciful to those who offended him verbally. If the late emperor were here today, Tang Yueshan would have been skinned alive, no matter how useful he was to the emperor. When Tang Yueshan heard the emperor's words, he knew that his life was saved. He secretly sighed in relief and wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. He cupped his hands and said, "In response to your Majesty's words, this humble subject is a boor and doesn't know any etiquette. I'm afraid I've offended Princess Ningen. If Princess Ning really wants to learn archery, this humble subject can recommend 1 or 2 candidates." The emperor had just experienced Tang Yueshan's sharp tongue, and was worried that Tang Yueshan would offend Princess Ning again. He looked at Princess Ning unexpectedly. Princess Ning didn't mind at all. She said, "It's fine. Marshal Tang is straightforward and outspoken. He's much more comfortable with us compared to those petty people who only pretend to obey." Tang Yueshan was very unhappy. The Tang family's archery skills couldn't be taught casually. Years ago, Princess Ning went to the Tang family to learn some archery skills because her father drank too much. He was too embarrassed to go back on his word, but he didn't teach her for too long. A few months later, Princess Ning finished her apprenticeship. "Is Marshal Tang not happy?" Princess Ning asked. This was a fatal question. Tang Yueshan coughed and said, "This humble subject just thinks he can't teach." Gu Jiao said, "He was injured at the frontier fortress and needs to go back to the capital for rehabilitation. Archery will affect the results of his rehabilitation." The atmosphere became awkward again. Eunuch Wei's eyes wandered back and forth between his masters. Princess Ning was His Majesty's favorite, but the little magic doctor was also very favored. Who would His Majesty listen to? Would it be his little sister who had been doting on him since childhood, or the little magic doctor who had saved his life? Just as the atmosphere was about to freeze, little Fatty Chin Chiu rushed over, wailing like a ghost. "Father, Father, help me." He threw himself into His Majesty's arms without a care. His chubby little hands grabbed His Majesty's clothes, and his body trembled. His behavior was too unbecoming of a prince. His Majesty frowned, but he also felt sorry for his chubby little son. "What's wrong?" His Majesty asked in a deep voice. Qin Shiyu cried until he was out of breath. My dog, His Majesty frowned. "Speak properly. What happened to your dog?" Qin Shiyu cried out. "Huang Fuxian killed my dog." Everyone's expression changed. Huang Fuxian's strange temperament was no secret in the palace. But killing a dog, especially a prince's dog, was too much. His Majesty frowned and tried to help the chubby little fatty up from his arms. "Are you mistaken? Why would your cousin kill your dog?" Qin Shiyu didn't get up from his father's arms. He buried his head in his father's arms. "I saw it with my own eyes. I saw it in Jingkong too. He's right there. He's right by the Supreme Liquid Pool. If you don't believe me, you can go and see for yourself." Ning and stood up and said, "Your Majesty, I'll go and see." His Majesty said, "I'll go with you." Qin Shiyu grabbed His Majesty's clothes. "Father, don't go." His Majesty said, "Didn't you ask me to go?" Qin Shiyu cried, "What will happen to me if you go? I'm scared." His Majesty sighed and said, "Let Eunuch Wei send you back to the palace of earthly tranquility." Because of this sudden change, His Majesty didn't have time to deal with Tang Yueshan teaching archery to Princess Ning. He went to the Supreme Liquid Pool with Princess Ning, and Tang Yueshan watched them leave and muttered, "These delicate princesses can't be beaten or scolded when they practice archery. Whoever teaches them will be unlucky." After he said that, he suddenly saw Gu Jiao staring at the Tang Bao in his hand. Her eyes were shining. Tang Yueshan's heart skipped a beat. He quickly held the Tang Bao in his arms. "Don't even think about it. I won't let you touch it. If you touch it, I'll be a donkey." The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster and more frequently. Millions of novels are free to read. You can find all the novels that you can't find on the internet. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_89264286/1089136226. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bqg mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 545. The latest chapter of this book is not finished. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are available here. The Emperor and Princess Ning quickly rushed in the direction of the Supreme Liquid Pool. Sure enough, they saw Huang Fuxian covered in blood on the grass behind a rockery near the pool. The scene was unforgettable for the Emperor. Huang Fuxian's legs were not covered with a thick blanket as before. His legs were covered in blood. A pair of empty trousers fluttered in the cold wind. His hands were also covered in blood. Even his cheeks, the corners of his eyes, and his neck were all splashed with blood. A drop of blood flowed down from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were empty and gloomy. His figure was lonely and broken. The Emperor's heart suddenly surged with an indescribable feeling. It seemed to be cold and also seemed to be horrified. A thought flashed through his mind. How could there be such a terrible child in the world? Huang Fuxian was only 13 years old, 1 year younger than Gu Shaoshan. However, the coldness he showed was not something a normal person should have. The Emperor's eyes fell on his empty trousers, and his throat suddenly choked. "Xian, what are you doing?" Princess Ning roared as she ran over. She grabbed Huang Fuxian's shoulders tightly and shook his frail body. "What have you done?" Huang Fuxian expressionlessly allowed her to rock him back and forth in the cold wheelchair. Princess Ning said with red eyes, "Speak. What have you done? Why did you do this?" The emperor came back to his senses and walked forward to pull Princess Ning away. Princess Ning uncovered her face and cried in the emperor's arms. "It's all my fault, it's my fault." The emperor looked and didn't see the dog's body. He didn't know if the child threw the dog into the supreme liquid pool. Thinking that a 13-year-old child could be so cruel, the emperor couldn't help but close his eyes and gasp. Because he was Ning An's son, he had to endure. Ning An had suffered too much. He couldn't let her suffer any more harm. "You go back first. I will talk to him," the emperor said to Princess Ning An. Princess Ning An cried and looked at Huang Fu Xian. The emperor patted her shoulder comfortingly. "I won't do anything to him. I just want to have a good talk with him." With the emperor's words, it would be inappropriate for Princess Ning An not to return. Princess Ning An sobbed and said to Huang Fu Xian, "Don't make your uncle angry." Huang Fu Xian leaned lazily against the back of the wheelchair, looking as if he didn't care about anyone. Princess Ning An turned and returned to Iridescent Clouds Hall. The emperor looked at Huang Fu Xian and hesitated for a moment before taking 2 steps towards him. He stopped beside his wheelchair and sighed. "Xian, I know you're suffering. You've lost your legs and your father. I understand your pain." "Ha!" Huang Fu Xian sneered disdainfully. He snorted at the emperor's words. Ever since the emperor ascended the throne, no one except Empress Dowager Zhuang dared to speak to him like this. He didn't want to argue with a child. "Yes, I didn't lose my legs. I can't understand all your pain. But I also lost my father. I understand the pain of losing a father." Huang Fu Xian said sarcastically, "Your Majesty's situation is different from mine. Your Majesty's father died of an illness, while mine was killed by someone." The emperor frowned. "Your father betrayed the court," Huang Fu Xian said calmly. "His court is the Li dynasty." The emperor clenched his fists and gasped again. He couldn't be angry at his nephew. The emperor looked at him and said, "If you want to blame someone, blame me. Don't blame your mother. Don't do these things to make your mother angry." Huang Fu Xian didn't look at the emperor. Instead, he looked at the calm surface of the imperial liquid pool and said coldly, "She betrayed my father. I want to blame her. I will never forgive her. Of course, I won't forgive your Majesty either. Your Majesty better kill me as soon as possible. Otherwise, when I have the power, I may continue my father's great cause of restoring the country. I am a member of the imperial family of the Li dynasty. My father's blood flows in my body. As long as I am alive, the Li dynasty will not perish. Your Majesty, your Majesty, your Majesty." Eunuch Wei's voice sounded from afar. The emperor's consciousness returned. He realized that he had returned to the imperial study and had been in a daze for a long time. He had almost strangled the child's neck. He had almost killed him. It was the child's appearance that was too similar to Ning and that pulled him back to his senses. He was afraid that if he stayed any longer, he would give an order to cut off his head. So he left him alone. "Your Majesty, are you okay?" Eunuch Wei looked at His Majesty worriedly. The emperor wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and shook his head. "I'm fine. How is little Qi?" Eunuch Wei said embarrassedly, "I sent the 7th prince to the palace of earthly tranquility and handed him over to the empress. The empress doesn't seem to be happy." Who would be happy about this? The empress was bullied twice, and it was by the same person. Empress Xiao was not a weak person who could be bullied. The palace of earthly tranquility and the palace of earthly tranquility had become enemies. The emperor pinched his sore eyebrows. "Send someone to the palace of earthly tranquility and tell them that I will be there for dinner tonight." This meant that he was going to appease Empress Xiao. Eunuch Wei understood. Yes. Eunuch Wei left. However, the emperor's worry did not dissipate. It was easy to appease Empress Xiao, but it was not so easy for him to get over the hurdle in his heart. His mind was full of Huang Fu Xian's words. "As long as I am alive, the Li dynasty will not perish." The remnants of the previous dynasty were too good at causing trouble. They even left a terrible shadow in the emperor's heart. In fact, Huang Fuxian was only a 13-year-old cripple. How could he restore the country? However, another voice floated in the emperor's mind. He had the blood of the previous dynasty in his body. He had inherited his father's wisdom and means. He was a child without any sympathy or pity. If he grew stronger, there would be endless trouble in the future. There was a memorial on the table requesting to confer Princess Ning on the title of Elder Princess Protector. The emperor had made up his mind. No matter how the court objected, he must confer the title of Elder Princess Protector to Ningen. But now he was not so sure. Was he really going to confer Ning on the title of Duchess? In that case, after Ning and passed away, her fief and dukedom would be inherited by Huang Fuxian. Would Huang Fuxian, who had real power, not become the second king, or the emperor's son-in-law? There were two choices in front of him. First, he could confer Ning on the title of Elder Princess Protector, which was the same as that of Duchess. But he had to kill Huang Fuxian to prevent future trouble. Second, he could not confer Ning on the title of Elder Princess Protector. Let Ning and be an ordinary princess, and Huang Fuxian would be an ordinary playboy. He would never have the capital to restore the country. On the other side, Huang Fuxian pushed his wheelchair back to iridescent Cloud's Hall. Princess Ning was waiting for him in his room. When she saw him, she dismissed the servants. Only the mother and son were left in the room. Princess Ning looked at his legs darkly. "Where's your blanket?" "It's dirty, so I threw it away," Huang Fuxian said lightly. Princess Ning took a deep breath. Huang Fuxian smiled and interrupted her. "Don't you want to know what I said to His Majesty?" "What did you say to His Majesty?" Princess Ning asked. Huang Fuxian smiled. "I said, I hate you, and I hate him. You killed my father, and I will avenge my father one day. As long as I don't die, the Great Li dynasty will not perish." Slap. Princess Ning gave him a cold slap with the back of her hand. This slap was merciless. Huang Fuxian fell to the ground with his wheelchair. He rolled out of the wheelchair, blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. He looked at her with a cold smile. "Mother, is this all you've got?" Princess Ning's chest rose and fell violently. She angrily glared at him, and even her body was trembling. Huang Fuxian laughed, so hard that he was shaking. The dried blood on his cheeks and the fresh blood on the corner of his mouth merged into one, making him look very strange. "Mother, take a guess." With a son who wants to rebel, will His Majesty still let you be the elder princess? Princess Ning's nails dug into her flesh. "From today onwards, you're not allowed to take a step out of your room." After saying this, Princess Ning turned and left. No one went into the room to help him up. Huang Fuxian lay paralyzed on the cold floor, staring blankly at the carved beams above him. The world seemed to be silent. Cold wind poured in through the cracks in the window. Huang Fuxian was so cold that he lost all feeling in his legs. He didn't move or make a sound. Suddenly, there was a squeak on the windowsill, as if a large bird had landed. Huang Fuxian didn't care. He just lay there like he was waiting for death. Then, a cute little figure climbed in from a windowsill and fell to the ground with a thud. Huang Fuxian raised his eyes. Unfortunately, he was frozen and couldn't move his eyes, so he couldn't see anything, until that small figure ran over and came face to face with him on top of his head. "Little brother." Little Jing Kong greeted him. "What are you doing here?" Huang Fuxian closed his eyes and asked angrily, "Is this a place where you can come?" Little Jing Kong ignored his coldness and went to him. He asked curiously, "Why are you lying on the ground?" Huang Fuxian said sarcastically, for fun." "Oh." Little Jing Kong also laid down beside him. Huang Fuxian was speechless. Little Jing Kong lay for a while and crossed his little hands on his belly. "But I feel so cold," Huang Fuxian thought. "Isn't that obvious?" Little Jing Kong sat up and took out a small porcelain bottle from his purse. "For you." Huang Fuxian asked calmly, "What is it?" Little Jing Kong explained, "Golden sore ointment. It's for healing injuries. Huang Fuxian said coldly, the dog is dead. Little Jing Kong said, it's for you. Isn't your hand injured? Huang Fuxian's eyelashes trembled slightly. His hand was indeed injured, but no one noticed it. They all thought that the blood on his hand was from the dog. Little Jing Kong saw that he didn't take it, so he grabbed his hand and tried to stuff the ointment into his hand. Little Jing Kong grabbed his hand and found that his hand was frighteningly cold. Your hand is so cold. You can't lie on the ground anymore. Huang Fuxian said, it's none of your business. Little Jing Kong looked around and saw that his wheelchair was overturned. He thought for a while and said, did you fall? Huang Fuxian said coldly, I said it's none of your business. Little Jing Kong got up and used all his strength to straighten the wheelchair that was bigger than him. Then he went to help Huang Fuxian up. Huang Fuxian was frozen, so it was not easy to help him up. Little Jing Kong thought for a while. Then he grabbed one of Huang Fuxian's hands and began to rub it. He rubbed it and exhaled. It won't be cold anymore. It'll be warm soon. Huang Fuxian hated being close to people ever since he lost his legs. Even Princess Ning couldn't touch him. But the little guy was rubbing his hand. Huang Fuxian was angry. Let go of me. Little Jing Kong rubbed Huang Fuxian's forehead like how Gu Jiao usually did. It'll be warm soon. Don't worry. He even rubbed his head. Huang Fuxian was about to explode. Little Jing Kong rubbed his left hand and then rubbed his right hand. Soon, his right hand was warm. Next, he was going to rub his legs. It was a taboo that he couldn't touch. It was incomplete and ugly. Even his biological father would feel disgusted and instinctively avoid it. Don't touch there. He would go crazy. Huang Fuxian stared at Little Jing Kong. Fortunately, Little Jing Kong didn't touch his legs. After warming his hands, Little Jing Kong tried to help him sit up again. He didn't know if it was because of the excitement at that moment, but his body was not as stiff as before. He sat up. Little Jing Kong pushed the wheelchair in front of him. He grabbed the armrests of the wheelchair with both hands and gritted his teeth to sit on it. Are you in pain? Little Jing Kong asked him. This time, he was referring to his legs. Huang Fuxian's Adam's apple moved, and he said calmly, not really. Little Jing Kong bent down. Huang Fuxian thought he was going to lift up his trousers, and his face changed. Unexpectedly, Little Jing Kong just stopped above his broken leg and blew gently with its little mouth. It won't hurt any more after I blow. There was no fear or disdain in his clean eyes. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. The novel will be updated faster. Millions of novels will be read for free. All the novels that can't be found on the internet are available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/8964-2_8906-243. HTML Genius. Memorize the website address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Bikugo mobile reading website. zhbqg.com. Chapter 546. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels can be read for free. Novels that can't be found online are all available here. Master Lien pushed the door open and entered. Why are you sitting by the window alone? The wind is so strong, you'll catch a cold. Huang Fuxian stared at the scenery outside the window and didn't answer Lien. Little Jing Kong was no longer in the room. There was no trace of him being here. Lien quickly walked over and closed the window across the table. Don't close it, Huang Fuxian said. Lien-er's hand paused in the middle of closing the window. She turned to look at her master in confusion. But it's cold. I'm not cold, Huang Fuxian said indifferently. Then, okay, I'll turn it down a little. Lien closed the window halfway. Huang Fuxian looked out through the gap in the window. His expression was indifferent and gloomy. It wasn't Lien Er's first day serving Princess Ningen, so she wasn't surprised by Huang Fuxian's appearance. However, she still felt sorry for him. She looked at Huang Fuxian, whose blood had already dried up. She didn't ask how he did it, because she had already heard that her family's young master had killed the 7th prince's dog. She said in a low voice, "I'll go get some water for you to wash your face." Lien quickly fetched hot water. It took her 2 basins of water to wash Huang Fuxian's face. When she washed Huang Fuxian's hand, she was surprised to find that the back of his hand was scratched, and there was a long cut. Her face turned pale. "Master, you're injured. Why didn't you say anything? This blood on your hand, don't tell me it's yours?" Of course, it wasn't all Huang Fuxian's. That cut couldn't have bled that much. Huang Fuxian frowned impatiently. "You're so annoying. Get out, I don't want to see you." Lien said, "I'll tell the princess to call the imperial physician." Huang Fuxian said, "I don't want to see the imperial physician." Lien said worriedly, but Huang Fuxian said coldly, "If you say any more nonsense, get out." Lien could only shut her mouth resentfully. Perhaps it was because this wound caught Lien attention. She looked at Huang Fuxian again. This time, she found a few faint finger marks on Huang Fuxian's cheek. "Did the princess hit you?" Lien asked weakly. Huang Fuxian ignored her. Lien lowered her head sadly and continued to wipe Huang Fuxian's hands. "Sir, can you not make the princess angry in the future? It's hard for the princess to be alone." Huang Fuxian mocked. "What's so difficult about her? Is it hard to raise a useless son like me?" Lien was rendered speechless. After that, Lien didn't dare to say another word. She wiped the blood off Huang Fuxian's face, hands, and neck and helped him change his clothes. However, she had only helped Huang Fuxian change his shirt. Huang Fuxian had changed his pants himself. Ever since his crippled legs scared a servant to the point of vomiting, he no longer allowed anyone to change his pants for him. When Princess Ning arrived, Huang Fuxian was already dressed and sitting quietly in the wheelchair by the window. "I heard that your hand was injured." Princess Ning walked over and closed the window. She wasn't Lien who had to listen to Huang Fuxian's orders. On the contrary, Huang Fuxian was her son. He should listen to her. "Let me see," she said to Huang Fuxian. Huang Fuxian didn't move. Princess Ning picked up his left hand. "Why didn't you say so earlier? It's such a long cut." Huang Fuxian turned his face away and ignored her. Princess Ning opened the wound medicine she had brought. She dabbed a little with her fingertip and applied it to the wound. After that, she applied it to his swollen cheek. Huang Fuxian tilted his head slightly and avoided her hand. "You still don't like others touching you." Princess Ning's fingertips still landed on his cheek. After applying the medicine to Huang Fuxian, Princess Ning said, "I'll come and apply it again before bed. I'm going to pay my respects to the Empress Dowager. Do you want to come with me?" Huang Fuxian's lips curved and he sneered. "Are you sure you want the Empress Dowager to see my swollen face?" Princess Ning unpinched her fingers and took a deep breath. She placed the wound medicine on the table and turned to leave. Runshou Palace. Xiao Heng had official business to attend to. After visiting his grand aunt, he left the palace. When he arrived, it was only him and little Jing Kong. Gu Jiao also came later. Little Jing Kong already had Jiao Jiao. How could he still remember his bad brother-in-law? He waved his little hand and sent his bad brother-in-law away. Then he began to uncover the roof tiles in Runshou Palace. As he grew older, his energy became more vigorous and his destructive power became stronger. However, Gu Jiao would basically fix it for him. When Princess Ning walked into Runshou Palace, she happened to see Gu Jiao repairing little Jing Kong's swing. Princess Ning had seen this swing many times. She just didn't ask about its origin. Prince Ning had 2 young princesses. Naturally, people who didn't know would think that the swing was prepared for the 2 young princesses. Jiao Jiao, is my swing ready? Little Jing Kong stood behind the swing and asked Gu Jiao cutely. Gu Jiao said, not so fast. The seat is worn and the rope needs to be reinforced. Little Jing Kong thought for a while. Then I'll go find my grandaunt first. Gu Jiao nodded. Okay, grandaunt. I'm coming. Little Jing Kong waved his little arms and bounced away. Gu Jiao squatted down and seriously repaired Little Jing Kong's swing. He didn't notice Princess Ning and at the door. Princess Ning unstopped in her tracks and stared at Gu Jiao without blinking. After entering the palace, Princess Ning unwore the gorgeous clothes of a royal princess. Occasionally, she would put on makeup. She no longer wore plain clothes and didn't wear makeup like she did in the frontier fortress. Especially today, she even put on the begonia makeup on the scar on her left cheek. At first glance, the red birthmark on Gu Jiao's cheek was similar to her begonia makeup. It was just that the begonia makeup was done by hand. It was small and delicate, and the birthmark paled in comparison. Before Princess Ning got married, she was a lively and active princess. However, when she was quiet, Shi Yi had a quiet and gentle side. Gu Jiao's temperament was similar to Princess Ning, and when she was quiet. However, it was more otherworldly and cold. Princess. A palace maid saw Princess Ning and bowed respectfully to her. Gu Jiao turned her head. Princess Ning smiled at her. Gu Jiao nodded. None of the palace servants present found it strange that Gu Jiao did not bow to Princess Ning in the imperial palace. Actually, in front of the emperor just now, Gu Jiao did not bow and scrape, and the emperor and eunuch Wei still looked as if they were used to it. Although Princess Ning traveled with Gu Jiao, they didn't interact much. After Gu Jiao fell asleep in the snow mountain, she was protected by Gu Chongqing on his back. When they returned to the army camp, he immediately isolated her. On the way back to the capital, Princess Ning sat in her carriage. Gu Jiao was at the front of the group, riding side by side with the Gu brothers. The two didn't know each other well. Princess Ning walked around the corridor and through the drooping flower gate to Empress Dowager Zhuang's bedroom. She couldn't help but look back at Gu Jiao. At that moment, a young eunuch rushed over, holding his finger. Miss Gu, my finger is broken. He was a young eunuch with no rank. Let me see. Gu Jiao put down the tools in her hand and took out a clean handkerchief to hold his finger. She examined it carefully and said, It's not broken. How did you do it? Hearing that, the young eunuch was relieved and whispered, Just now, I hit a walnut. The maids who were sweeping nearby covered their mouths and snickered. The young eunuch scratched his head in embarrassment. Gu Jiao said, Wrap it in a handkerchief and ice it. If the swelling doesn't go down tomorrow, apply it again. 2 days later, apply a hot compress. The young eunuch quickly thanked her. Thank you, Miss Gu. I will remember. Princess Ning looked away and continued to walk towards Empress Dowager Zhuang's bedroom. She didn't expect to meet the young eunuch again. The young eunuch was new and didn't know the rules. He rushed out from behind the corridor and almost bumped into Princess Ning Princess Ning didn't say anything, but he was scared out of his wits. He knelt on the ground and said, Princess, spare me. Spare me. Princess Ning said calmly, Get up. I don't blame you. Yes. Thank you, Princess Ning. The young eunuch stood up, trembling. He didn't dare to look up to peek at his master's face. Princess Ning said slowly, I don't remember you being so scared in front of Dr. Gu. I don't eat people. The young eunuch said respectfully, You are a princess. You are the Empress Dowager's favorite princess. I dare not offend you. Princess Ning said, Isn't Dr. Gu the favorite of my mother? The young eunuch said, Of course Miss Gu is, but what? Princess Ning looked at him and asked, Miss Gu, she. The young eunuch stuttered and didn't know if he should say it. Princess Ning smiled faintly. She is more approachable than me. You like her more than me. The young eunuch trembled in fear. I didn't mean that. The latest chapter of this book is not finished yet. For more exciting content, please scan the QR code below to download the app. Novels are updated faster. Millions of novels are free to read. Novels with content that can't be found online are all available here. https://www.zhbqg.com/89642_896426/1088889658. HTML Genius memorized this website's address in 1 second. www.zhbqg.com Biku Mobile Reading Website. zhbqg.com. You're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.